one.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the yearly objective. And I know what you're thinking. Yeah, any type of annual event should ideally take place right kind of 2/3 into February. Sounds about right. Now, the reason for this very special event will be made apparent to you momentarily as I pass the mic along. By the way, powers that be, figure out if we're going to do this grid style, speaker style, or however we're going to do this. But let me tell you about Ayn Rand Center UK. This has sort of been a godsend, if you believe in that type of thing. Now, I've long been an atheist, like probably many, like all objectivists and many of you watching. But as COVID-19 has overtaken my life, I'm starting to negotiate. God, I know we've had our differences. We've disagreed at times, but I could really use your input right now. I could really use your help. Anyway, jokes aside, let me tell you about ARCUK UK. It started off as a local meetup in London back in the old times when people would meet in person, in the flesh. And I was contacted by its founder, Razi Ginsburg. He noticed me talking about objectivism on the internet, and he said, "Hey, we'd love to have you out here to speak and hang out, and maybe even play a couple songs with the crowd and have a good old time." I ended up going out to England and getting to meet a lot of interesting, cool people out there. And Razi has been growing this thing. And finally, as the lockdown became a reality, he innovated and brought it over to the internet in a way that can only really be compared to Lewis and Clark venturing out into the unknown West. That's the way I see it. So we have got the Lewis/Clark here with us today. Razi Ginsburg, along with the classic co-host, the man of Greece, born moments away from the birthplace of Aristotle in all likelihood, both Razi and Nikos Sotirakopoulos. How are you guys doing?
Hi, Raga. Thank you very much for the intro. First things first, let's give the stage to Razi.
Yeah. Hey, Raka. I appreciate the comparison to Lewis and Clark. Not sure I agree with it, but I am very proud of what we've done in the past year. And I want to sort of explain why it is that we're here now raising funds all of a sudden seemingly out of the blue, although, you know, we keep reminding people that we have a membership program and to do super chats, but, you know, something on this scale has not yet happened. So the reason we've been, or the way we've been able to do so much on YouTube in the past year was because of a grant we received over a year ago to do live events in London, which we're going to start on at the end of March of last year, and we're going to run every single Friday. That was no longer possible. I asked to repurpose the funds for online content. That was approved. Yeah, but those funds are, you know, they're about to run out. What we've been doing on social media and on YouTube does cost money. So today we will be presenting what it is that we've done in the past year, what it is that we want to keep doing, and what we're planning that you haven't yet seen. So I'll be talking about some of that. Nikos will be talking about some of that. Of course, we have a tremendous lineup today. I think you've seen the people on the poster, and there are others who are not on the poster who you'll see. But for now, and thank you, Robert Naser and Shauna Clemens, for the early super chats. We do appreciate the super chats. They do help us, and they all go into, that money goes into YouTube. So Nikos, do you want to go ahead?
Yes. So just to very quickly sum up what we do is mostly on a couple of different levels. So the first level is we do things that we try to throw some sort of an objectivist viewpoint, but take this with many pinches of salt, because most of us are not experts on current affairs. And this, for example, is the type of things we do with the Daily Objective, the things that we do, for example, with Raka and with the other co-hosts. Then on a second level, we want to engage more people with the actual work of Ayn Rand and of Leonard Peikoff. And this is mostly the members-only stuff that we do every Saturday, where we go through the Leonard Peikoff courses. We're going to have a chat with these on this with James Valiant, who is with us also today. Also, though, we do this for everyone on the Wednesday events where we discuss particular essays from Ayn Rand. And the third thing we try to do is we try to approach issues that have not been approached that much from the objectivist community. An example is the psychology of the Fountainhead series or the psychology of the Atlas Shrugged series. And another thing is trying to apply, again, an objectivist lens the way we, the students of objectivists, understand it. So this is by no means the objectivist take on these topics. On issues such as, for example, psychology or issues such as romance. So what we think is that our community are mostly people who are passionate about life, who are passionate about their values. And also, the reason they like objectivism, the reason they found value in objectivism is the fact that they can help them lead a better life. So it's in various levels. One level is understand the philosophy. Another level, and on this we use, of course, the help of intellectuals. We've had Kai Toffen, not only James, we've had Harry Binswanger, we had Andrew Bernstein, we have many objectivist intellectuals as guests. So that's the first level, understand the philosophy. The second is apply to your life. And we're going to say a bit more about that on a new project of ARCUK, UK, which is the Productivity Hub. And another level is see how objectivism applies to various other issues of your life, romance and things like that. So I'm sure we're doing more stuff and I've forgotten things. For example, I've forgotten the Friday reading group on fiction, but we're going to have time to discuss this with prominent objectivist intellectuals who help us on these things. So this was the sum up of what ARCUK has been trying to do for the past year. Razi.
First of all, I want to thank the people who have already given in the super chat, and Kathleen, who asked, how do you donate? First of all, Kathleen, you are a member, so that is, from our point of view, the best way to support our work, because we know a certain amount is coming in every month. And certainly we, of course, appreciate super chats, and there will be other ways. We will partially announce some of them later today, but I do want to get to our first guest. So all the guests we will meet today have been on the channel in the past year, and our first guest is Craig Biddle. He is the editor of the Objective Standard magazine. I think I've shown this last time he was on our channel. This isn't the most recent cover, but it's one that I particularly like. He's also the author of Loving Life, the Morality of Self-Interest and the Facts That Support It. Craig is joining us from, should I say, an undisclosed location? I don't know if you want me to disclose it. In either case, welcome, Craig.
Welcome. Glad to be here. So can you hear me okay?
We can hear you. We can't see you, but I guess that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I thought I had the video going. I'm in an airport, and there's going to be some background noise. So I'll just do without the audio. I mean, without the video today. So I haven't been able to hear much of the intro here. I heard Nico's for the past maybe couple minutes before I tuned in. But I just want to say that I really appreciate what you guys are doing. There are not enough people focusing on trying to introduce people to this philosophy and then to help them understand it once they are introduced to it. And you guys are really doing a great job, I think, at the second, more so than the first. Although you may have efforts underway or programs underway that are introducing people to the philosophy. If so, I'd love to hear more about that from you. But I just want to wholeheartedly say that I appreciate what you're doing, and that I speak on behalf of 3 organizations when I say this: the Objective Standard, which you mentioned, Objective Standard Institute, which is our 501c3 educational organization that's dedicated to teaching people about philosophy and about objectivism in particular, and Prometheus Foundation, which of course has funded you guys and will continue funding you. But I know that it takes a lot of money to do what you guys are doing. And, you have to pay people, you have to set up programs, you've got to market. And so I encourage your listeners and your followers to be selfish in their giving, right? This is a really important organization that you've started there and that you're growing. And I, for one, am a big champion. So.
Thanks, Craig. And you've been on the channel in the past year a few times. I think the first time was, I think it was in April. And the title was Rational Egoism and Coronavirus. And I remember that was when we were just figuring out, we realized we're going to be, stuck online for a while. We were figuring it out. That was a Zoom call that was recorded and was then uploaded. We're now, doing things a different way. We're broadcasting live, from a shared office space, as you might be able to see from behind us. But the most recent event you did was just over a month ago about promoting objectivism in 2021. And a couple of months ago, of course, you did that event with Douglas Murray. So I wanted to ask you about what you've seen, between these events, if you've seen us, how you've seen us grow. And I know everybody wants to ask you about a different interview you had a few days ago, your chat with Prager. But maybe we'll have you on for that separately.
Yeah, I'd love to chat about that. So yeah, I unfortunately don't get to watch a lot of your programs. I get to dip in here and there when I have a little time to do so, but my schedule is kind of crazy and I just don't get to watch a whole lot of what you do. But the events that I've been in, that I've participated in, I thought went really well. And I know how difficult it is to pull these things together and to, learn the ropes of this kind of thing. And then all of a sudden to have to do it all online as you've done. I know about that too. So kudos on all of that. Yeah, I've really appreciated the conversations that we've had. The one on egoism and COVID was I think an important topic at the time. How do you deal with this new context and these lockdowns as an egoist? What can you do? You want to keep living and you want to keep thriving. So that was a fun conversation, and I thought it was smart of you to think of that as a topic. The discussion with Douglas Murray was also wonderful. Douglas is a really impressive guy who's, although not an objectivist, he's certainly doing really important work in the intellectual sphere. And I'd love to see more conversations with outside intellectuals such as Douglas Murray. I mean, that's why I did this conversation with Dennis Prager the other day. I think what we want to do is meet people, meet intellectuals who have some substance and something to say and perhaps good audiences, and talk to them about our ideas and hear them on their ideas. And here's the thing about objectivism: the ideas make sense. And if we're able to talk to people about them and just put enough ideas on the table to sort of whet people's appetite about this stuff, then they can go read Rand. The goal is not to teach them objectivism during a lecture or during an interview. The goal is to give them an indication that there's something new and valuable here, and hopefully encourage them thereby to go and read Rand. And I think that's the kind of thing that happens when you engage with someone like Douglas Murray or Dennis Prager or any intellectual who has a strong position on his views, and you can sort of put ours up against them and say, okay, let's chat. And so I love that you're doing that, and I'd love to see more of it.
So can I?
Sorry,
Nikos, I heard you start.
Yeah. So you said something important, Craig, which is introducing new people to Ayn Rand. So the way I see it, there are three ways that we're trying to do this. So the first is what you mentioned. So having an event with a big name. So let's say Douglas Murray brings his own audience, and then they hear also the view of an objectivist, and they say, well, there might be something interesting here. So then they go on. The second way to do this, that we're trying to do this, is with the current affairs commentary. And let me give you an example. So the other day, I got a text from one of my sparring partners back in New York, who is someone who is interested in politics, more or less. So he said, oh, what came up on my timeline on YouTube was an episode where you are in on a 9 Rand Center UK thing about Gina Carano. So someone who has an eye for commentary on current affairs can see something again and see an interesting new point of view, and then get hooked in and try to see a bit more. And the third way we are doing this, which is the most, let's say, conventional way of doing this, is more or less with the Wednesday discussion, which again, we go back to the basics. So last week, so the basic essay. So last week, for example, we discussed with James, the objectivist ethics. And when I say we discussed, we touched upon the first quarter because it's such a big and difficult essay. Or almost once every year, we go back to philosophy who needs it. And the idea for this is someone who is new, this gives them an easy entry point. So the idea with these events is my line, the line that I usually throw to the group and to the people I discuss is, explain it to me as if I'm 15 years old. Don't give me, the terminology. Make this simple. Make this welcoming to someone who has not been an insider, but someone who can understand what the value is. And then when they want to go deeper, then we have all the other events. We have, for example, the Leonard Peikoff reading groups, and we have all that stuff. So this is, in a very few words, the strategy in terms of getting to someone who has never heard from Rand before, and then having, let's say, different ante rooms. And then they enter every ante room, and then the more they're interested in, they can enter the next room and the next room and the next room. Or another big example, for example, the series we did with Gloria. So Gloria brought a new audience, a fresh audience, and we discussed something relatively remote to the hardcore of philosophy for most people, which is romance. And then again, someone might hear something interesting. Oh, isn't love not about sacrifice? And then they go to the next, let's say, ante room, and then they get more into the philosophy. So this is how we view it.
And a couple of things, Nikos, that you mentioned there, we're going to elaborate on later, right? So the different things that members get, because membership is a great way to support us, but you also get stuff with it that I think is worth more than the cost of the membership. By the way, for most levels of membership, one of the perks is you get an online and print subscription to the Objective Standard, Craig's magazine. So and that's one of, I think, many perks. Something else you mentioned there at the end that I was going to comment on, but I forgot. So yeah, let's go back to Craig if you have any final words. I know.
Just thanks for that. Thanks for that breakdown, Nikos. That's good to hear. I love the approach there, which is to keep things in simple terminology, right? You're not impressing anyone when you come in with big, complex philosophic terms that they just simply don't understand. You'd be wasting time. So I love that you're doing that. I champion that. And, this whole thing goes to the broader point of just meeting people at their context and their values, right? You can't teach people from where they're not. You can only teach them from where they are. And so I love that you're self-consciously working to ensure that your products do that.
And let me tell the audience something. I didn't even realize there was a level of membership at ARCUK that comes with an Objective Standard membership. I couldn't wait to promote the Objective Standard, but I didn't want it to be predatory, like they'll get the OS instead of ARCUK. But now that I know you can actually support both at once and get both at once. Listen, folks, look at this cover. How cool is that? The assault on corporations. Is there anything edgier than this you could possibly have on your coffee table right now? I love it. And you want a little bit of class in your home? Just the covers of this magazine alone, putting aside the content. I mean, listen, some of you watching this, I hate to say it. Look, you guys are my people. We're having a little bit of trouble growing up, finding our groove as adults. This in your home puts you in a different category in people's minds when they assess your living situation. And that's just the cover of the journal. You open it up, I've learned about history, art, the history of philosophy. People wonder, how do you know so much? You're, mildly educated. I pick up bits and pieces from the Objective Standard. And most importantly, the stories of individuals such as Thomas Jefferson. In this case, I've learned about Franklin, not Franklin Roosevelt, but Benjamin Franklin. Big difference. Please remember that difference. And the guy whose name I keep forgetting, even though he's one of my all-time heroes, who was the born slave who ended up becoming
Frederick Douglass.
That's right, Frederick Douglass. I've learned all about his life, read his essays. Magnificent individuals through history that have taken bold steps we're still benefiting from. So, folks, now that I know that an ARC UK membership can also get you the Objective Standard subscription, there's literally no reason not to do it. You can't afford not to. And thank me later. That's all I can say on that.
Yeah, I was, thinking of saying some words about the Objective Standard, but I never would have thought of pitching it as a status symbol, like that people will come into your home and see that you have it.
Speak to people's values, Razi. Meet them where they are.
But I'm definitely with you on the beautiful covers and, of course, the great content. And I also want to say, yeah, we've been very active on YouTube for under a year, but this cooperation with the Objective Standard has been around for 2 years. And Craig, I appreciate your support going way back then and up until now for the Ayn Rand Center UK and for my work. So thank you, and thanks for being here today with us.
My pleasure. Thank you guys for the great work, and just keep it up. So I'm going to run. I've got a plane to catch, but best success with this fundraising show, and everyone listening. Please help these guys out. They're doing great work, and they're doing work to advance our values. So this is, your contributions are selfish. They're in your self-interest. All right.
Thanks, Craig. And I want to also thank the people who have done super chats so far. I think we are about halfway, maybe just over halfway past our super chat record, which is good. I think there's a chance we'll get there today. I also want to thank the new members. I will thank you personally in an email later. I don't know if you want your names mentioned live, but we do have new members. So I want to thank people for supporting us. And Raka, let's go to you.
Well, I don't know. Am I about to introduce a guest, or do you just here? Let me say something. I was about to. You know what? I actually forgot what I was going to say. Were you passing it to me to introduce a guest, or are we just making conversation? Because I can do both. Actually,
let me say this before. So it'll be a while. I think it'll be like 15 minutes before our next guest.
Okay.
I will say that if you want to know, we haven't advertised a speaker schedule, in part because we've only advertised some of the speakers who are actually going to be here. Yeah, there are surprises coming. If you want a very short, sneak preview into who's next, make sure you're following Ayn Rand Center UK on Twitter. We are going to let you know a little bit in advance who's coming up next.
And I remembered what I was going to say. Let's grow this thing, folks. We want to get this to a level where, like, Dennis Prager and PragerU people are being, if they're lucky, interviewed on ARC UK. Because recently Craig Biddle, who was here moments ago, was interviewed on PragerU, and that was great exposure for him and for Objectivism. But let's actually let's flip that. Let's turn the tables, if you like. We're going to grow this thing so big that Dennis Prager will be excited to be interviewed by somebody at ARC UK. Do you think we can get there, Razi? I think so. What about you, Nikos? Thumbs up? He's saying yeah. So again, Razi, I'm a little unclear. Are we bringing on another guest, or are we just hanging out?
No, we're bringing. Actually, you know what? Yeah, let's bring on another guest.
All right.
So we have Helen Keller with us. So Helen has been on the channel a few times, and she's on now every week. Those of you who subscribe to the ARC UK YouTube channel hopefully have seen the psychology of Atlas Shrugged characters. It's definitely one of the things I'm most proud of that we've done. And Ellen is the psychologist on that show. So Ellen, you're joining us now. Yeah, I think you're unmuted.
Yes, I am unmuted. Yes, I have loved doing this. When you invited me to do it, guess what the first thing I had to do was? Reread Atlas. Yes, for like the 10th, I think it's the 11th time now or 12th time. And I went through it thoroughly. And then for each character, I go through it separately and I take notes, just tracing how Ayn Rand carries a character throughout the book. And I mean, I've got a crazy amount of notes. I could hold some up just to show you, but this you don't see usually. But tons of notes on each character, trying to just see how brilliant she's so brilliant. She makes such amazing connections. We're going to be talking about Haley, and I've been studying Haley and Ellis and Mulligan, and you just trace one character with all of their dialogues through the book, and you see the connection. You see where she brings up Haley's two symphonies, the fourth, the concertos, excuse me, the fourth and then the fifth, you know, in scenes that are a little bit, that are scary or that are foreboding, you get the fourth symphony. And then in scenes where things are just becoming wonderful, you get the fifth, hints of it. And so it's just been a wonderful treat for me to do that series. Plus, you've also had me on to talk about sex at one point with Gloria and you, Nikos. That was a lot of fun. I think you were planning to do that again too. I couldn't make it last week, you know, sex gets in the way sometimes. But no, I think you're doing so much. And of course, my initial intro to you, I think, Razi, we met at an OCON and I think the after party for OCON 2020. And then you invited me for the most amazing, one of the top experiences in my life. And that was to be able to tell Leonard Peikoff how important he's been through my entire life in ways that, countless ways, but ways that he'll probably never know. And I think I speak for all of us. And just to be able to, I had no idea he was listening. I thought maybe he might be, but then I thought, no, you would have brought him on, we would see him. And what an amazing surprise that was to have Kara speak with him and to hear that wonderful connection that we all could enjoy between Kara and her dad. It was so loving. And then just, you know, Carl was on and it just, Andy, you were there, you know, just to thank him. It was a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful tribute. And I hope you were able to do that for many more years. I would like to become a member, but I have not, I got off of Facebook. I rarely go on Facebook. So if you could tell me how to become a member, I already have this, so I won't need your online. Here's another wonderful cover of Craig Biddle's publication, The Objective Standard. And
Razi, can you tell something about membership in general? And then can I say something about the impact that Ellen has had on the group in a way she probably does not know? So go on first, Razi.
All right. Well, first of all, yeah, membership, just go to aynrandcenter.co.uk/membership. Memberships start at £10 a month. The £10 a month doesn't include the Objective Standard, but it does include a lot that we will be discussing throughout the evening. Yeah, Ellen, I have to say that the event we did for Dr. Peikoff was definitely my favorite event that I've ever organized. It was absolutely one of the highlights of my life. It would have been even had he not shown up, but the fact that he was there was, yeah, I not a day goes by without me remembering that wonderful evening.
Can I say something? So we had Ellen in November with Dr. Ed Locke. They talked about the selfish path to romance. So here's the impact that's the book with a very cool front page. So here's the impact, Ellen, you had and Dr. Locke had on the group. So the same days we were discussing on the fiction reading group on Friday with the living. And quite often we have on the WhatsApp groups discussions about romance. After that day, I have to tell you how often people use the concept of visibility, which is a concept that you introduced in the book. You and Dr. Locke introduced the book. When we had you on that event, you explained it on the meetup. And after that, quite often I see people using this narrative of visibility. So people saying, for example, why does Kira has this initial attraction with that character and with the living? Oh, because he sees things in her. So, and also people in the WhatsApp group, I hear them saying these things. So also a thank you from us, because again, this is a topic that is of interest to everyone, but you provided a very special lens through which to see it. And you gave us some tools to understand romance that maybe instinctively, unconsciously, subconsciously at some level we would get, but you put words in it. And I think that was one of the best meetups that we've done. So a big thank you from
well, thank you. But it didn't originate with me or with Ed. It goes all the way back to Aristotle and then Ayn Rand and Nathaniel Branden, the visibility principle. But it's helped me tremendously. And I see it throughout Atlas Shrugged, especially with the good characters. I'm so glad we've done a lot of the bad.
Yeah, but I personally didn't really understand it till you explained it with
well, thank you for that. I'll tell Ed.
So that was a big value to me, so thank you. Razi.
And I'll say it speaks to the idea of carrying the message forward. You know, people might not have heard about the visibility principle until they heard it from Ellen, or they heard it in the book. They read it in the book. So that's kind of what we're hoping to do here as well. By the way, on Twitter, we're trending right now. I think they misspelled our guest's name. They wrote Helen Keller, but it's trending right now.
All the time I've been introduced as Helen Keller.
Yeah,
my boss, when I worked at a child center it's actually an infant study lab at Brown University, my boss introduced me as Helen Keller.
Well, you know, that's a great person to be conflated with. You know, what I've always found very poetic is that Helen Keller's first concept was water. So for a moment of time, everything to her was water. Water was everything, much like Thales, right? Everything is water. Isn't that nice? And that's the kind of poetry you get here at the Ayn Rand Center UK. So please, folks, we need money. You know, I don't need money. I'm fine. I'll be all right. But, you know, this thing costs money. Please consider, look, you guys, you spend $15 a month on Netflix. You get a bunch of vapid content, right? I hate to say it. Your money is being dedicated to spreading bad ideas, all types of terrible things that are making the world a worse place. And I'm not just here to bash Netflix or anything. But imagine if you could spend a monthly sum to actually get great content and promote great ideas. You could actually have no conflict between the stuff you're promoting and the pleasure that you're receiving. And that's a selfish path to romance, isn't it?
Romance, we got it again. Yeah. Just a quick question. If people want to make a one-time donation, how do you do that? Is there a membership option for that too? I know you want the money coming in all the time.
Well, that's the thing. So first of all, we, for people who don't know, we are not a charity organization. We're a private company. So in terms of taking donations, that's a bit of a problem. Super chats on YouTube are basically the equivalent of one-time donations at the moment. So people, when we are live on YouTube, and also when we are, I think some shows that are not, like for the Atlas Shrugged character series, you can actually do super chats even though it's not live. So that is the best way. But I will also say, you know, for people who can, you know, provide, you know, more support than the membership, get in touch. We can talk about, you know, sponsoring shows, sponsoring episodes of shows. If you have a product to promote, that's I think one of the advantages of being a private company is, you know, yeah, we can you know, we can do business in that way. We can advertise products and services. So yeah, but anybody who just wants to give the equivalent of a donation, YouTube super chats are the way at the moment. Nikos, did you want to jump in?
No, I'm good. Thank you.
All right. Well, actually, do you want to jump in anyway and introduce our next guest? So
I see 4 people who could be our next guest.
all right, then I'll introduce our next guest. Our next guest is the CEO and president of the Ayn Rand Institute, Tal Tzfani. Now, Tal, first of all, you were on this channel back in was it July, I think, with Josh Dixon in an event that I absolutely loved, the psychology of entrepreneurship. So yeah, do you want to remind us of that and tell us of your experience with our...
Well, the first thing I remember, I was visiting a friend because his kid had a birthday and I had to find a corner in the house to do the event. So it was, I remember it was very colorful in the background because I took the kids' place to point the camera at. But it was, like you said, it was a lot of fun because not often we talk about applications of philosophy and objectivism, and specifically to specific parts of your life and how it contributes to the way you think about it and in a way frames everything and gives perspective. And I think during that conversation, we got on points that I don't think were discussed before on how, for me, at least from my point of view, objectivism really inspired me to be way more into entrepreneurial than before. As I mentioned, I was working for big companies before the Fountainhead. So I read Atlas and then I read the Fountainhead, and Howard Roark kind of kicked my butt and made me way more entrepreneurial than before, and made me take many more risks than before. So I really love that conversation, and yeah, the feedback was really good.
And speaking of good, look at that video quality right there. We could use an upgrade at ARCUK, folks. I mean, we could look like this. This is like watching a HBO documentary, a Netflix premium membership, you know, the extra $3 a month for that quality. And
forget about the quality. Look at what's behind me.
Wow.
It's a little
kind of blurry right now. I thought when you point to it, it would get clear. I thought that's the kind of equipment we're talking about.
No,
but folks, we need
the Fountainhead.
What is it, by the way? Now I'm curious.
It's the Fountainhead. It's just that it's a little messy behind me, but it's a copy of the Fountainhead that I really love.
That's great. And we could use more copies of the Fountainhead to give out to people. And we could use a camera upgrade. Wouldn't that be nice? Everybody, listen, we need money. All you do is spend money. Think about it. You go to the bar. Oh, remember those days? Okay, we'll update it. You order in. You're like adding, you know, dumplings to your order. You're adding egg rolls. You're getting drinks. You're getting all these things you don't even need. That's bad for you. Why not just spend a few dollars a month on the Ayn Rand Center UK membership? And you're getting a bunch of content with it. So it's not like you're just throwing money to change the world. You're not just buying your way into heaven. No, you're actually getting heaven on earth. Write that down, Razi. Write that down. You could even borrow that, Tal, if you guys could use it over at the Institute.
Yeah.
So can I ask a question to Tal? So Tal, you have an approach with the Institute where you have something like 3 different tiers when it comes to approaching people. So the first is get people into contact, then get them to get a bit deeper and get them interested thing. And the next level is what you call, I think, agreement, which is get people seeing themselves as someone who can carry the message. So how do you see the division of labor within, let's say, the objectivist movement on these 3 levels when it comes to groups like ARCUK?
We just had a conversation about that yesterday, Razi, right? I think what the UK center is doing, it's specializing for me in more of awareness and the beginning of understanding level. So if you think about awareness, understanding, and let's say agreement, I would add in a 4th level, which is commitment, which is what guys are trying to create today, commitment. So it's not just why I agree with it, but I'm doing something for either the movement or I'm funding the movement. So I think of the center in UK as specializing in having a lot of energy and persistence I don't know how you guys do what you do on a daily basis on Clubhouse now, and the Objectivist Daily and all of that, but that's amazing. To really attract more people and interact with a much wider audience. And now we're doing a lot of analysis of what are those triggers. I don't know if you saw all my graphs of pipelines on how people, or funnels, how people get first exposed, what do they do next. Atlas is usually a big milestone in that funnel, in that journey. And then moving on to the nonfiction, all the way to, for me, ultimately to OAC and an intellectual career. And we're doing a lot, by the way, thinking these days about post-OAC programs like networks, activating networks, and so on. So if you think about division of labor, the DNA of ARI is educational in nature. We're philosophy geeks, right? That's what we do. And we love talking about it, writing about it, and teaching it. I tried to make ARI a marketing agency when I started, just to find out that Onkar really doesn't have a knack for marketing. But no, I'm just kidding. It's really a division of labor in the sense that people who want to do more awareness content, they need to be very consistent, talk in a different language, think about, not about the philosophy, think about what people ask themselves before they know philosophy is relevant to them. And I think that's what you guys are doing brilliantly. And when you do the analysis of how people come to objectivism, you hear a lot, oh, I've heard Yaron Brooks talk somewhere, and I saw this YouTube, and this guy was talking about something, and I got interested, and then the name Ayn Rand popped out, so I Googled her, and before you know it, they're reading everything. So that's, for me, the division of labor. And it's beautiful to see how everybody contributes because of what they're passionate about. They're just doing what they love. And you guys are getting on Clubhouse on a daily basis and doing your shows and talking about topics that I wouldn't imagine people would like to talk about, but it seems like attracting a really good audience. So kudos for that.
And something I repeat it every single time, I'm going to repeat it once again. It's very important for everyone involved in the movement to understand, in Greece, we say how deep in the water you can go. So there's no chance we can go anywhere near in the water where people like Onkar or the ARI intellectuals are. So in a way, what we do is, to use another Greek proverb, we prepare the water for the people who then can go there. So it's very important, again, to understand what we can and we cannot do. We cannot teach objectivism. We are struggling to understand ourselves, but we can advocate the impact that objectivism had in our life. And we can advocate how at least trying to use an objectivist lens can help people actually understand current affairs or the world out there in a better way. So
I would add to that that it's all it requires is honesty about your level of understanding of a point. When you get to the limit of like, I'm not sure I understand it, just say it. You know, I think that I've heard Yaron say it many times. Like, if Yaron says that, wow, he says sometimes, you know, and I'm not sure I really understand this point. If you want to get in deeper into that, and that's someone who's dedicated his life to those topics. So it requires a lot of honesty. And yeah, I think that's the right thing to do, to say, look, I can tell you what I understand. And I saw Harry just join, but if you really want to understand it, you should talk to Harry.
Spoiler alert.
Yes.
If I ever didn't understand something, I'd be the first to admit it.
Okay, Razi, I think the surprise is...
Yeah, Tal, there were a couple of spoilers there. One was that Harry Benslanger is here, so we will hear from him soon. And the other was Clubhouse.
Tell me not to spoil it, but okay.
Clubhouse is also a bit of a spoiler. I think much of our audience knows that we are there, but our first Clubhouse show was 8 days ago. And we've been on every day since, and that's the plan is to continue doing that. But yeah, we're also on YouTube every weekday. So people who are not on Clubhouse yet, you know, they still get our content, but make sure you join Clubhouse because we are going to be doing a lot there. Tal, I know that ARI is doing a lot as well, and I recommend it. I think that's
you know what we should do. We should open a group of Clubhouse invitations because people are dying to get invitations, and mine are growing by the day. I got like, I don't know, last time I checked it was 7 or something like that. But
well, we were prioritizing Ayn Rand Center UK members, but we also ended up with more invitations than members who need them. Although in the past 40 minutes or so, we've had several people join, so we might not have that many invitations. But yes, let me also encourage objectivists who have invitations to give them to objectivists who need them. Nikos, you look like you're about to say something.
No, I was about to say from it's according to, but it's not even my joke, so I won't, yeah.
Is this a substitute for Twitter or Facebook?
Not really. It's more of a sort of, I think the best way to describe it is like a live podcasting platform where the audience can participate. It's call-in radio for the 21st century, or yeah, some mixture of that. It's and I think one of the great things is that the shows are not recorded, so once you record it, it kind of changes the nature of a conversation. I think there is a recording function, but we don't use it, and I think for the most part, is
it audio and video or just audio?
No, it's audio only. It's not even you can't even text. So
Harry, do you want an invitation? I'm sending it your way right now.
Sure, why not?
Great. Well, maybe, by the way, we will be on Clubhouse once this show is over. So maybe we'll have some objectivist intellectuals making their Clubhouse debut on our show tonight. Nikos.
No, that's all from me. So yeah. So since the surprise is now evident, do you want to make the transition, Razi?
Sure. So we have Harry Benslanger joining us. Harry has, he is a well-known objectivist philosopher, author, most recently of How We Know, Epistemology on an Objectivist Foundation. And he's been on our channel, I think several times, quite a few times actually recently, and most notably in some controversial events, the events about was Ayn Rand wrong about homosexuality, about a woman president. So Harry, do you want to tell us about your experience with these events and with the Ayn Rand Center UK?
Yeah, I support what you're doing. It seems very good, and you're very active and entrepreneurial. The group of people is good. So I encourage people to support you financially. Hopefully sometime you'll be able to do this for money, for profit.
Well, we are technically a for-profit, and those of us working on things related to the center get paid. But yeah, that is one of the things that are somewhat in jeopardy at this point. But by the way, let me, since I brought that up, thank the many people who are doing super chats, the several people who have joined the membership. George, your super chat was beautiful, but I will get emotional if I read it, so I won't. Nikos.
Yeah, what I wanted to say is, first of all, I don't know if we're allowed to name the names in the team. Maybe they want to remain behind the scene, but as I said earlier, I think we're off the record. They're doing such a great job with the image quotes and the short clips, but something about particularly a short clip recently with Harry. So I've been reading Objectivism and Harry for years, but it's in one of his appearances that he said something about ethics being something related to life. So something that was just passing while he was saying other things. But once we saw it in a short clip, for me, it made sense. So one of the things that is, I think ARCUK UK is doing well is having these short clips where take some things, maybe 1 minute videos, 2 minute videos of one particular topic, either by James or by Harry, or we also had of many other people, and they clarify your thoughts when you see it in a way that it's difficult today with the short attention spans that people are having. So for example, you can watch a 2-hour discussion on ethics and miss the very obvious point, for example, that ethics is about basically this and this and this. or that ethics is about what is the course that you will take in your life. And then you see it in this short video and suddenly it clicks. So a huge kudos. Okay, first of all, a huge thank you to Harry and the intellectuals who show up and help us with that. There's no chance that we would obviously be able to do it without them. But also a huge kudos to our team behind the scenes who are creating these videos, who are picking these highlights, who have the eye and the mind to see what are the good parts, and who help both us creating good content, but also the thinking of these intellectuals make it out of the noise in today's social media. Because in today's social media, it's difficult to have this moment where you say, aha, now I get it. And I think what we're doing is at least trying to contribute towards that. Razi.
Yeah, actually, I have some things to say about our social media, but I'm going to save it for our next guest. And when you see who that is, you'll know why. But Harry, actually, I want to talk about, or actually, I want to ask you about the first event that you did with us, which was you and Jean were giving a talk on the reactive subconscious. That was the first event. It was I think very successful. It was when we were sort of in the early stages of figuring out YouTube. I think we may have, I don't remember if we broadcast that live on YouTube or Facebook, but yeah, content-wise, that's the type of event that I'm so proud of, that even if it gets a few hundred views to begin with, that is on our channel now forever. So first of all, thank you for that. And yeah, any thoughts on?
Yeah, our thoughts have developed since then. And the reactive subconscious is the view that the subconscious does not make any new connections that were not first in your conscious mind, that the subconscious is not an engine of integration. It makes integrations, it puts things in a certain order that when you, I shouldn't say it does that, you put things into your subconscious in an order which has implications for what will trigger what in the future. So things that are related consciously and stored together are more likely to recur in your mind together, and you may have connected consciously A to B, and at another time connected consciously B to C, but it never occurred to you that that means A is connected to C, and that thought can pop into your mind. Now, of course, the interesting ones are where the connections are far flung. Everything is connected to everything else. But anyway, in arguing with people who always want to bring up, well, what about ideas that come to you while you're asleep, and ideas when you're not thinking about the thing at all, and suddenly the answer comes into your mind. We've made two refinements to the theory. One is that it is possible that some sort of energy for retrieval comes while you're at something's in fringe awareness, or even while you're asleep. You know, when you're asleep, you're not just bam, unconscious. You're going in and out of a low level of consciousness. You're having dreams, you're going to deep sleep, you're going to REM sleep, you're coming up for a minute, going back. And if something's on your mind, I know I introspect, I'm turning it over, not terribly logically, in my fringe awareness while I'm asleep. So that's one thing. It's not all or nothing. Lee likes to point that out. He's quite right that the fringe awareness is critical. It's not just unconsciousness and in focal awareness, there's a fringe. And you bring things in from the fringe, and the fringe has a certain energy of retrieval. The other thing, which is probably more important, is that there are two things, connection making and retrieval, that go on in your consciousness. And we don't have strong views about retrieval, about what will make something pop into your mind, what will the conditions of triggering of thoughts in your mind. What we are saying is, with the reactive subconscious, your brain, which is what the subconscious really is, does not start growing dendrites at random to new axons and forming new connections. It's not making new connections that you never thought of on its own in an active way, the way your mind can make new connections. So it's a theory not about retrieval, but about what happens after storage that distinguishes, it's not retrieval, it's connection making, that distinguishes our view from other people's view.
So that's what we said, that the different levels of analysis that one can find in ARCUK. So we just heard something about reactive subconscious, which is the highest possible level of philosophical quality, so to speak. And at the same time, someone can find something, a commentary on a TV series or something like that. And again, it's about understanding who can do what. So it's only people like very few people actually at the level of Harry who can do that level of analysis. And that's why we thank them for being with us and doing this kind of stuff. And then trying to understand who can do what and give answers to different types of questions that people might have. So that's something that I get a lot of value from ARCUK, and I would get it even. And I've also mentioned to Raj that if I wouldn't be working in ARCUK, I'd definitely be a member. So another thanks from me to Harry.
Yeah, and I think the reactive subconscious part 2 might be coming soon, hopefully. Lee, I know you have something to say about this, but I'm gonna save it for the reactive subconscious part 2. By the way, I also Tal has already left. Sorry.
Great, that's great.
Oh yeah, all right.
Yes, if there's going to be a part 2 at some time, that's great.
I don't know. I just said that Harry hasn't actually agreed to it. So
well, if he does, I'll be there.
Yeah, Lee, for all of his badgering, has been very helpful. Lee and I started off in 1960, God knows what, at the same place, and we came to the same kind of general conclusions. And he's the only guy I know, other than Gene, that is even thinking about these questions and is generally on the same wavelength as I am. But we always argue, we always fight. But I want to acknowledge his very helpful input.
Yeah, we're very close. Positions are very close, but that's where you get some of the best arguments. You don't get a good argument with somebody that's way far away from you. There's no point.
So I just wanted to say, and again, Tal has already left, but yeah, I was going to thank him for his support personally, because 3 years ago when Tal became CEO and president of ARI, it was not clear that the Ayn Rand Center UK was, it was not clear, I think, to people at ARI that the Ayn Rand Center UK was a positive thing that should be supported. Tal was definitely one of the people who did support us from day one, and I very much appreciate that. I want to bring in our next guest. So I said we will discuss social media some more when we talk to our next guest. Our next guest is Don Watkins. Don, besides being on our channel a few times, the content that he put on his channel, especially last summer when he was talking about how to talk to people about freedom and about objectivism and how to adapt to different social media platforms, was a game changer for us. I mean, there was one particular clip that I remember listening to and saying this, our Twitter is unacceptably bad. And we immediately shifted on how we did social media. So Don, welcome.
Good to be here, guys.
So yeah, actually with you, I do want to talk about that, about, social media. I think is something that if objectivists figure out would probably be very helpful to us in as Tal was saying, the awareness level of just raising awareness of Rand's existence and a little bit of her ideas, and then getting people into the funnel. Your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I think at the end of the day, the fundamental is always, do you have arguments that get at the truth? But if you're thinking about how do you create a movement that's attractive to people, including people who are not yet pre-sold on the arguments, one of the things you should be thinking about is, how do we have the best conversations? So, I mean, Harry was just talking about his experience with Lee. And I just remember when I first moved to California to work at the Ayn Rand Institute, and I started meeting a lot of people, including a lot of people who have been and are on this call. One of my thoughts was, man, you know what? I think I could get people so much more excited about objectivism if they just heard the kind of like conversations that we were having amongst each other, which sometimes had to do with philosophy. Sometimes it had to do with debates about, you know, as Nico said, like popular movies. Sometimes it had to do with just how do you get the most out of relationships, which Ellen's talked about. But it was just these fascinating conversations where agree or disagree, they were just light years above what I was encountering anywhere else in the culture, including often with really smart people. And so one of the ways that I like to think about social media, and one of the reasons I really am excited about what you guys are doing, is it's areas where we can create conversations that anybody can jump into and out of. And so one of the things that you guys have done is facilitated really fascinating public conversations. I mean, think about the diverse number of people that you've had on these calls that is on the call right now. You get independent scholars, people from different organizations in objectivism, and you get them together around subjects that cover the whole range of things that one could be interested in, whether it's the novels, whether it's really kind of like how to live your life better today, all the way to cultural and political topics. And I want to see more of that happening. And I like that you guys are doing a range of topics. I love that you're expanding to different media. I think so. If when I think about the social media world today and the spread of ideas, the top three places that I think those are happening are Clubhouse, Twitter, and Substack, which isn't exactly social media, but those three. And it's interesting that Twitter is going to try to compete in all three, it looks like. But those are kind of the three major places. And so I think it's great that you're getting in that game as well.
And actually, just to add to what Razi said earlier, so around, I think early in the summer or somewhere, Don made his, let's say, comeback in the public sphere with his guidelines on writing and thinking. And this had a huge effect. So if you see the Slack, the main Slack channel of ARC UK, one of your lines which said something like, ask yourself, why on earth should someone give up 15 minutes of Netflix or whatever to watch the thing that I put up? I told Razi, we need to make a poster and put it in front of our laptops. So your contribution has really coincided with us trying to step up our social media game. We're nowhere near where we should be, but we've learned a lot of things from you. And actually, maybe you don't know this, but when it comes to the Saturday events, when we discuss Leonard Peikoff's courses, your series on OPAR has been, let's say, my companion on trying to come up with some good understanding, but also some good questions for the participants. So from my side, a huge thank you. Some of your work is what people say, you know, I can't believe that's free out there. So I also encourage people to go and subscribe to your website. I think with your newsletter, they get these goodies at the beginning, these guides, which again, the writing one has been so good that I even gave it to my university students. So Razi.
Well, let me just say something about that, because I'm really happy to hear that, because one of the things that I noticed really early on is that, you know, Ayn Rand had this line of it's earlier than you think, and she was talking at a kind of cultural, philosophic level. But one way to think about that, or one, I think, different perspective on that, is the objectivist movement is younger than we think. And if you think about what happens with time, is you get an acceleration in which each generation can achieve. If you think about what Leonard had to go through 30 years, basically, or at least 20 years before you would say he like learned objectivism, and then through his teaching, and then ultimately through OPAR, made it a lot easier for people like Harry to learn. And then Harry made it a lot easier for people like Greg and Onkar to learn. And then what people like Alex Epstein and I are doing is, accelerating that further, particularly in the areas of, all right, how do you build an impactful career and be persuasive to non-supporters? But we couldn't have done that if we had to spend 2 decades learning the philosophy. So it's each generation, I think, can speed up how quickly people can learn and be impactful with these ideas. And so the fact that that's been the whole goal of my work is it took me, the better part of 10 to 15 years before I could write competently and had any clue about ways that one could build an intellectual career that weren't just kind of standard academia or the traditional model of a think tank. And so I think what one reason to be among several to be optimistic, rationally optimistic about the future is that the ability of people being exposed to these ideas to learn them and apply them and use them and push them forward, I think increases. And I'm really happy to play any small role in that I can.
Yeah, you definitely play a role on that. And you mentioned Clubhouse. So just for people to get an insider's view on the type of discussions we have sometime on Clubhouse, the other day it was, who is the best objectivist on Twitter? And there was a draw on the top. It was you plus someone else, which I'm going to leave it. Maybe, Raz, if someone asks a good, like on YouTube, a good question, you can give them who was the second winner. But Don was there on the top. So
yeah,
Don,
I saw that Mary Aline mentioned in the live chat that the maximum super chat you can do is $500. So yeah, go ahead and ask, and we'll tell you.
Right.
I'd like to give a story that illustrates what Don was saying. It didn't take me so long to become a decent writer. And at the beginning, I was terrible, and everything I wrote was wrong. And every time I wrote something, a leading objectivist would criticize it. But eventually, I wrote something that lasted. And one thing that was extremely helpful for me was I sat down with Leonard Peikoff during the Columbia student riots of 1968. And we objectivists at Columbia who were fighting against the left had written a broadside. And he sat down with me and went over the first paragraph. The first paragraph took him 45 minutes to tell me what was wrong with it. And it was the most instructive 45 minutes in terms of writing that I've ever had. I never thought of looking at my writing in the way that he looked at it. I'll give you only one example that I remember, which is not a great one, but it shows you the level. I had written, since man has rights, the use of force to violate those rights is immoral. I'm just making up a sentence. And he said, since is not the right word. Since has a temporal dimension. You mean because, or some word like that. You're talking about causality. You're not talking about this came before that. I never thought that. Since, because, on account of, they were all the same to me. He once told me that he and Ayn Rand sat down and worked out the difference in meaning between designate, denote, mean, refer, stand for, and a couple of others. And that's the kind of attention to conceptual clarity that good objectivist writers have. And it's not obvious that you do that. Ayn Rand said you set your writing premises when you edit. And that's also very helpful advice. And another guy, last writing comment, not an objectivist, who was a scientific writer. And a student praised him for the clarity of his scientific articles in scientific journals. Now, how do you do it? He said, I rewrite 20 times. I don't know that you really need to do that. Ayn Rand didn't do that when she was doing it, but she did write 5 pages for every page that shows up in Atlas. She discarded 4 pages and wrote it over. That's it.
are we waiting for me? Because I was just gonna say, because one of our speakers has to leave soon. First of all, Zach, thank you for the 100 Canadian dollar super chat. Canadian dollars are good. We accept. I know we always make fun of them here, but we do like them. Andrew Bernstein needs to leave soon, so let's bring him in. And Andy, you've been involved. You're probably the person who has been on the channel the most, other than the co-host of the Daily Objective, I think, right? You've been, you can tell us, you've been on quite frequently.
I can't even remember all the different shows I've done, Razi. I remember discussing, the hero book, Heroes, Legends, Champions, with Nikos and Gloria, right at the tail end of a hurricane in New York. That had to be July or August. And I remember losing the internet right at the end of that discussion. I know we've done a lot of things, but the best, the most enjoyable things for me were on the novels, the content, the shows on the Fountainhead, the psychology of the Fountainhead characters, and now the psychology of Atlas Shrugged characters has been great. And I want to say to people, I think that Razi and Nikos and everybody at the Ayn Rand Center UK are doing great work. You could go up on their website, or I have it posted on my Facebook page. You could see the episodes from the psychology of the Fountainhead characters, and that was a lot of fun to do, because the Fountainhead's my all-time favorite book. So it was a lot of fun to do that with Gina and Shoshana and Ellen, and now the psychology of Atlas Shrugged characters. We'll really get into depth, in the characters and the philosophy of it, the psychology of it. It's really great material. So I want to congratulate you guys, Razi, Nikos, and everybody at ARC UK for putting on these shows and these series. I want to encourage everybody to watch it and enjoy it, and definitely support the Ayn Rand Center UK, because I think you guys are doing great work, and you've been doing it for months, and you're getting better and better. I mean, I can't even believe all the content you're putting out every day. I can't even keep up with it. If I tried to keep up with it, I wouldn't be able to do any writing. So and then the debate with Harry was great on on religion versus collectivism, where I think we got into a lot of really good content, and showed all these contentious objectivists that who like to call names on Facebook and everything. It showed that that serious objectivists could disagree on all kinds of important political issues, and do it in a respectful way, and in a friendly way. So I think that debate was really good in terms of content and in terms of the tone of it. I don't know that the argumentative objectivists like to throw names around that people they disagree with on politics. I don't know that they're going to learn from it, but it's instructive anyway. So I think Razi, you're doing a lot of great work. Nikos, you guys doing a lot of great work, and I strongly support it, and I hope people will take some of their disposable income and support you, because what you guys are doing is great, and I'm very, very happy to be part of it.
Thank you, Andy. And one of my still one of my top 3 ARC UK moments was, and also to see how different times were. So 3 years ago, I showed up in London after an invitation by Razi when you were giving a whole day seminar on Ayn Rand hero. So it was anyone could ask anything about any Ayn Rand hero. And I asked you, what's the comparison between Rick in Casablanca and Hank Rearden in terms that they, spoiler alert, lose the love of their life? And you told me they're both giants. They have so many things going on for them. It's okay. That's why Rick at the end of Casablanca can walk with his head up when the airplane is leaving. And that really stuck with me. So thanks again from such an early point, adding so much value to us and and being with us since then.
Well, you're very welcome, Nikos. I'm glad I could contribute, and I think to that point, romantic love is an enormous value in human life. Ayn Rand certainly shows it in every one of her novels, and and I think most of us know that. And to lose the love of your life is enormously painful. There's a great deal of mourning that somebody has to go through. to recover from that. But as important as romantic love is, I think, what these characters show us is that a genuine self-love is even more fundamental. And that, Francisco can lose Dagny, for example, or Rhiannon can lose Dagny, but it's who you are as a person and what you know about yourself in here that enables you to recover and enables you to move forward in pursuit of other values and in time to love again. And I think there's one point I want to say on that, if it's okay. It's like with a lot of people, to lose the love of your life or to be heartbroken romantically, one, you lose the enormous value of this other person, but two, somebody with a self-esteem issue, it's a double whammy, because the feeling that is, I'm not good enough, is a kind of, like a Woody Allen character kind of response is, woe is me, I'm not good enough. As somebody of strong self-esteem doesn't have that second response. You lose the value, this person who you love enormously, but it's not a self-esteem point. You know how good you are. And it's like the comparison I would draw is with Howard Roark in The Started Temple, when Roark says tells Dominique it's a pain that goes down to a certain point. He lost his baby. And I think that you could look at it as like if he had built it in San Francisco and it was destroyed by an earthquake, it's that kind of thing. It's not a rejection. It's not a rejection. The people rejected me. Society says I'm no good, therefore I must not be very good. He lost his baby. It doesn't affect his self-esteem. He knows I designed it. It's magnificent. I built it, and I'm enormously proud of it. It's the same. It's similar to if you lose the love of your life. I lost this person who's enormously important to me, but I know what an enormous value I am, and it's not a self-esteem problem.
Thank you, Andy. Razi.
So thanks again for everybody who's doing super chats. I am not reading them out, but I will read some of them out. So Ed did a super chat specifically for Andrew's priceless banter. So I thought I should read that one out. And Suvik, you are, I think, the first person to ever do super chats in Indian rupees. Thank you for that as well. And of course, Sutherland with £100 super chat. Thanks a lot for that. By the way, we are way past our super chat record. We're also past our most new members in one day record. But so we're well on our way. And thank you, everybody. And keep going, Nikos.
Well, you need to introduce the next speaker and
okay.
Release Andy, because I think you mentioned he needs to.
Yeah. Andy needs to leave. Andy, do you have anything you want to part with?
Andrew's priceless banter. What's that?
Andrew, as in you. Well, I'll read the exact is £5. It says, here is one for Andrew's priceless banter. Well, that's British for good
style.
Yeah. No. Okay. I appreciate that. Thank you. No, I would just say I look forward to, you guys have grown so much, so rapidly. I look forward to what you're going to do soon. It reminds me of what Kent Lansing says to Howard Roark. He said, he's something, I don't remember the exact quote. It's not verbatim. He said, I'm fascinated to see how high you'll go, because I've always had an interest in astronomy. So, I'm fascinated to see, how much further you go and the original material that you'll do. And I'm glad, I'm very happy to be part of it. And I hope the objectivist world and people who are just new to objectivism will contribute to this, financially, because work takes money. People who work hard and effectively, have earned their money, and help you promote objectivism and reach a wider audience in the UK. And one good thing about this pandemic, maybe the only good thing about it for me, is the explosion of the technology and the use of Zoom. And now the ability to do these great programs that you do and reach people in Timbuktu or wherever they have internet connection. And one last thing I'd want to say, I do think podcasts and such are really outstanding. But if somebody's really going to understand objectivism and love it the way it deserves, they have to read Ayn Rand's novels. You have to read people have to read The Fountainhead and Atlas Shrugged. I mean, they're the two greatest novels ever written. Ayn Rand's the greatest novelist in world literature. She's a magnificent writer. You know, to appreciate her literarily, as you know, as well as philosophically. But first, foremost, and always, Ayn Rand was a novelist. I mean, she was interested in philosophy because she needed a theory of human nature, you know, to present the ideal man. She became in my judgment, the greatest philosopher, second only to Aristotle, as a secondary means of achieving her primary goals as a novelist, which is just extraordinary. And it truly concerns me in the classroom when I see the kids, college kids, American college kids, struggle just with the mechanics of reading now. In many cases, never mind with reading comprehension, what that means for objectivism. If these poor kids, a lot of them are good kids, they're honest kids, they're good American kids, you know, they want to have a career and be prosperous. They want romantic love. They want to be happy. You know, they're good kids, but cognitively they're not at a college level, and they could read and understand The Fountainhead and Atlas Shrugged, which is, I think, indispensable to being an objectivist. So that's concerning. But what you're doing, with the podcasts and and the Zoom episodes and everything, hopefully could reach the elite, the kids who could still read, and then be motivated to read The Fountainhead and Atlas Shrugged, and maybe the other kids, they don't remain 20 years old forever. They get to be 30, 35, 40. They've grown intellectually. Their reading abilities hopefully have increased. Their ability to comprehend hopefully have increased. Maybe they get interested in what you're saying in some of these Zoom episodes or some of the podcasts you do, and hopefully you plant seeds, right? You plant seeds, and hopefully now or in time, people will read The Fountainhead and Atlas Shrugged and be able to appreciate it. One, just for this unrepeatable intellectual, emotional experience of reading the greatest novels of history, and then two, the segue into objectivism, the introduction to objectivism. So I think at many different levels, what you guys are doing is great, and I'm very happy to be part of it. So keep up the good work, and everybody help support ARC UK. I'm sorry, Nikos, what was that?
Since you mentioned university students, just to tell you that your chapter on the Industrial Revolution from the Capitalist Manifesto is on my first year university students reading list, on the chapter of how did we go up from living in caves to the industry.
Just happen to have a copy of the UK. I mean, of Capitalist Manifesto. So thank you, Nikos. And I'm hoping the students in the UK could still read, because the educational system in the UK may be less bad than it is in the United States today. We got to work on that.
Well, people here can read, but we've been told we misspell the word center in the name of our company. So, might not be able to spell.
Have a great day, everybody.
Thanks, Andy. And of course, everybody, if you haven't been watching The Psychology of Atlas Shrugged characters, or if you didn't watch The Psychology of the Fountainhead characters, that is on our channel. I can't recommend that strongly enough. And so thanks again, Andy. And
you're welcome, Razi. Take care, everybody. Have a great day.
You too.
A great objectivist day.
Thanks. And our next speaker, we were talking about, the awareness level, and our next speaker, I think, does promotes objectivism on the awareness level better than anybody possibly ever in the short history of the movement. So this is another one of the few guests who have not been announced in advance, except if you're paying close attention to Twitter. Yaron Brook, welcome.
Hey guys, nice to be here.
So Yaron, you've been on our channel most recently. I think it was the end of November. We did an event with Toby Young, but you actually are one of the people who know about the Ayn Rand Center from before the pandemic and before we were on YouTube, and when we were doing real life events when those were legal. So do you want to tell us?
Vaguely remember that, real life events. Although I did two over the last, with real people, 3-dimensional people over the last, just the last 10 days. So I'm starting to, it's starting to come back to me, what that looks like. But yeah, I mean, a lot has happened since then. Obviously you guys are doing a ton of things online. You're using Zoom to its fullest. I keep thinking people are going to get tired of consuming so much material via Zoom, but doesn't seem that way. It seems like the audiences across all the different, in all the different podcasts and YouTube channels only seems to be growing, not shrinking. So yeah, I mean, things have dramatically changed. I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys do once we have live events again, and once we can combine both kind of Zoom and live events at the same time.
So Yaron, you've set the standard, as Razi said, about raising awareness about Ayn Rand and bringing people in the movement. So if someone asked you, so Yaron, I want to do a lot of things to promote objectivism. I understand that my level of understanding is not where it should be. So what is the proper balance of spreading the word, but at the same time, making sure that I stay within where I should stay in terms of how I understand objectivism and not overstepping that important limit?
Yeah, I mean, I think you need to be honest with your audience in terms of where you are with your knowledge. You need to be honest with them. You have to be willing to say, I don't know. You have to be willing to say, I was wrong, which I will, I think, on my show tonight. So you have to be, you have to just be within that scope. And then, talk about things you think you know. Talk about things that you think you have some expertise. Talk about your personal experiences. Talk about what your personal experiences of being with objectivism, with Ayn Rand's novels, and it's really important to know what you know and know what you don't know, and try to limit yourself to those things, and be honest and forthright about what those things are with people.
People are excited to hear you're about to say that you were wrong later, it sounds like. Can you give us a sneak preview of what it was about, or is it a secret till then?
I don't care. I say that. I don't think I say that. I don't think it's that infrequent that I say that I'm wrong about something. People have, I did a show on cancel culture yesterday, and people have written me to clarify what is meant by cancel culture. And I was yes, I think I got it a little wrong in the sense of what cancel culture is, and the fact that to cancel somebody, I think one has to have the power to cancel them. So I said something like, I cancel Nazis or communists, but it's more than shunning them. It's more than ignoring them. It's more than not allowing them in your home or on your platform. It is literally going after them and destroying their livelihood. And that's what cancel culture is. And you need to have power in order to do that. That you need to have, and unfortunately, I don't have that kind of power. I wish I did. A number of people I'd like to cancel if I had the power to do so. I won't mention names, but the left, when you see it online, there's somebody they went after. Well, today they were trying to, they actually can get people fired from their jobs. And that, we saw that in the New York Times on several occasions now, most recently with the science, one of the most prominent science writers at the New York Times got fired from his job for ludicrous, truly ludicrous reason. And we've seen that over and over again, but we see that in other institutions as well, where they go after them. There's a guy who's following me, who follows me on Twitter, who is, I think, either an engineering or math professor at a small college. And he's also like the baseball coach or something like that. And well regarded, students love him and everything. And he's an objectivist, very friendly towards objectivism, and posts a lot on Twitter about it under a pseudonym. That is, he doesn't want to mix the two. So he writes about it under a completely different name. And, it keeps the two completely separate. And somebody has, what do they call it? Outed him, but there's a term for that. Doxed him and gone to the administration with tweets taken out of context, presenting him as a racist and trying to get him fired. And that's kind of what the essence, I think, of cancel culture is. I think I was a little too soft or too inaccurate in presenting it. Not soft, but inaccurate in presenting it.
Maybe there's a bit of a package deal, like disassociating with somebody and also then going out of your way to unearth a tweet from 15 years ago that would be frowned upon today. And by the way, I didn't mean to imply you never admit you're wrong. I just thought it would be fun to tease later's episode. And now everybody knows what to watch later. By the way,
yeah, now I have to come up with original material for you know, in a few hours.
You could just replay this episode, some cross promotion there. Perfect.
Right. Not easy coming up with original material 4 times a week. So,
but
I need to have more guests on. It'll make it easier for me.
Yeah. Well, we're basically, we're actually hoping to move your show to 9 a.m. California time so that I can watch it right before the daily objective. I could just hear what you say and then know exactly what to present to the audience. It would just save me any time of preparation.
Just use the night before show. I mean, I don't know why you
the news cycle, you know how it is. England had a full day of news by the time I wake up. By the way, people wondering
talking about news in England. Whatever happens?
I mean, good point. I'm always doing the England bashing on here whenever there's a chance.
No, I love the UK. What's that?
I do want to say, well, last time I read one of Ed's super chats, I said I'm not going to read many super chats, but there are a few coming in that address Yaron, so I want to read those. Ed says, Yaron Brook is a maestro of objectivism. Hope to see you on ARCUK in the future. We can't actually announce a date yet, but that is going to happen very soon, right? Yeah, I'm not going to elaborate, but yeah.
Hopefully next week. So hopefully soon. Yes.
Yeah, on the Daily Objective and on Clubhouse. So once again, everybody download Clubhouse.
Somebody will have to explain Clubhouse to me some point. I mean, it sounds to me like it's for, I don't know. I guess it's for professional intellectuals that's all they do, right? I mean, I find it. How do you find the time? It's some of the, like Eric Weinstein is on there all day. I constantly get these messages from Clubhouse saying, join this with Eric Weinstein, join that one. I mean, good for him.
Yeah, I've also noticed that quite a few intellectuals are spending a lot of time there, but you know, that's a good thing for us. And yeah, that's going to happen sometime next week. I wanted to read a couple of other super chats. Gene says, Yaron is here, and I feel like a groupie at a concert. And Suvik says, Yaron, your books and videos have changed my life. Thank you.
Oh, thank you guys. I really appreciate that. Hey, you guys have got a good super chat going on here. I have a feeling I invented super chat. You know,
I also have that feeling.
As a true fundraising vehicle. You know, I think I don't know anybody else who does fundraising telethons on YouTube. You know, so I really think I started that. And you know, it's been very profitable. I can't complain. So I will continue to do that in spite of some people saying they don't like it.
The constant theme that Razi used to make me a believer of super chat is see Yaron, see Yaron, see Yaron.
Well, Razi asked me, you know, we need money. What are we going to do? What should we do? And I had one piece of advice for him. It was basically one word, you know, ask. You're not going to get money unless you ask for it. And unless, you know, you have to make the case. You have to be willing to say, you know, please give me money. And here's why. Here are the values I provide. So Super Chat is just one more way in which you can make that ask. It's too bad YouTube takes such a big chunk out of it.
And at the same time, God bless YouTube for giving us this opportunity. I like how you've been breaking up your show into like the topic first, then some super chats. It's a good way. And then obviously your employees are breaking it into little mini segments that go on YouTube. And we've got our own team here at ARCUK doing similar type of thing and capturing clips to release on social media. These people are not free. So if anyone,
none of this is free. I mean, people need to realize that, you know, all of this costs money. And, you know, I don't know how Razi makes a living. I don't know what he makes a living from. I assume from ARCUK, but I think he lives on peanut butter and jelly sandwiches because I don't know where the income is. So, you know, to pay Razi's salary to do all the kind of clipping, to do the number of shows. I know hosts like COVID plus. What is that?
That's
Rocco,
my it's my
name?
screen name on Zoom. It's COVID positive ARCUK member. I've been speaking about my COVID.
Oh, do you have
recently.
COVID?
I have COVID. It's not,
Right now?
it's not fun right now as we speak. This is historical, I know. But yes, I've been speaking about it.
I've tried by many routes to get COVID. It seems like I just can't. My wife had
a shortcut.
Come had it. We I didn't know she had it, so we didn't, nothing, and I didn't get it. I'm traveling. I fly. I do live events. I mean,
if you can't get COVID from your own wife, either you're completely immune to it, or maybe Helen Keller can give you some pointers on the mechanics of it all. But
good point. But yes, the mechanics we worked. I'm somehow immune to it. But now I'm being vaccinated, so I got my first shot. So we are. I'm on my way to being fully vaccinated. I think next month. So somebody says Rucka and Yaron saved my life. There you go,
Takes
Rucka.
a team. Takes a team.
IRS, we're willing to save more lives. I mean, we're available by contributing to ARC UK. You can help Rucka and me save more lives. So keep it up. I see the super chat is intensifying. I like this.
Yeah, people are wondering how we even were able to book Yaron on the show. Well, we told him there's going to be a super chat. We just didn't tell him where the money is going.
I needed my super chat fix for the afternoon. But
by the way, I want to make a small side point here, and this is how we look at people who support our work. So Mary Ben says in a super chat, my enjoyment of ARC UK includes, but is not limited to, Rucka's endless monologues. Now, Mary Benz, you asked a question in a super chat question in an episode of the Atlas Shrugged character series. That was not a live show. We have recorded and written answers from all three of the co-hosts for that. Please get in touch with the contact form on the website, and we'll send all that to you.
So is Rucka's monologues longer than mine? Is that even possible?
Well, you call it a podcast episode. We call it an opening.
I just go
monologue.
for 2 hours straight, and
I've gone so ranging between like 4 minutes and 10 minutes. But
on the second Gina Carano episode, you went straight 10 minutes till you let me.
Yeah, that was me and you disagreeing. So I had to make sure, my point of view was expressed right off the bat. Now, speaking of disagreement, what were we disagreeing about? Maybe Yaron has an opinion. That would be a treat, wouldn't it? What were we? Oh, well, that's not that interesting. The Carano, whatever her name is.
Yeah, I was saying from all the cancelings, this was one of the creepiest because for a change, someone at least tried to connect the dots in terms of thinking and principle that, well, what caused this totalitarianism is stereotyping and othering. Okay, she gave a clumsy example, but the anti-conceptual mentality out there is so big that people didn't even bother to try to see what she was trying to say.
The dynamic,
the photo is so inappropriate in this context, and it's whenever you're relegated to using the Nazis as an example, don't. I mean, unless you're making some really big point and you're really gonna, you're not triggering the right, it's likely you're gonna get the kind of response you got, and there's a certain validity to it given it's a bit hysterical.
But her approach was not wrong. Her approach was, let's try to understand what lies behind these phenomena, and I'll try to do it myself. I'll try to think out loud. So basically the message was, don't try to think out loud, which I think is very bad for the public sphere.
Don't put a picture of a anyway. The picture it's not, Twitter's an emotional tool. It's not one for deep cognition and deep thinking. So you have to realize what tool you're using. You can do that in an essay if you're willing to explain what you're talking about and why there's a relationship between what's going on now and the Nazis. I mean, Leonard Peacock did that in Amos Paulos, of course, but to do it in a snippet like that and evoke that kind of emotional response.
Your Honor, are you talking about Your Honor, you're talking about the photo that had the Monopoly board. Is that the
No,
one
I'm
you're
talking about the photo of a woman whose clothes are torn off, and a couple of little Nazi, what do you call it, Hitler youths chasing after her with, and obviously they're ripping her clothes off and about to beat her up or rape her, who knows. And she was making the connection between the attitude of the left in the US towards conservatives is similar to the attitude of the Nazis towards the Jews. I mean, okay. I mean, things are bad in the US.
I mean, I didn't see that photo, but I thought her point, I read her point, which was not about the Nazis. It was about before the Nazis. It was about the neighbors of the Jews, not the Nazis, but the neighbors of something that happened prior to the Nazi, concentration camps and such. And
once you put the photo on,
I didn't see that photo, but anyway, I think the criticism she got for her actual words was unjustified. Actually, what she actually said. Not that I think Gina is Toronto's the great intellect of the age or anything. I happen to like her in The Mandalorian, and that happens to be my favorite TV series. And I really, upset that she's gone. But anyway, I thought her actual words were completely misjudged by the leftist critics. I thought that's what I thought. I didn't see that picture. I saw the picture of the Monopoly board.
No, it's in the tweet.
The
text and the picture's right there.
Yeah.
In the tweet, you can't separate the two, and you shouldn't. I mean, that's the power of Twitter.
Sure. Yeah.
I do want to bring in our next speaker because I know he also has to leave at some point soon. So Greg Salmieri is with us. Hi, Greg.
Hi, my appointment I had been pushed back a little, but so I have a little longer than I thought, but happy to be here, happy to be on.
Great. Thanks for joining us. By the way, if you want to weigh in on the topic that was just discussed, feel free to.
I agree with Yaron on part of it. I agree definitely. I don't know what he thinks on the other part. I didn't hear Rucka and Nikos on it. I agree that if somebody puts a post with a tweet with a picture on it, you can't take the text of it out of context. If the connection with the picture is part of what got people upset, you have to then evaluate the picture and not evaluate the text as though it was there without it. And I do think there were things reasonable to object to in the tweet, but I think the reaction of firing her for it was an overreaction. I don't like her in The Mandalorian. In fact, I think the episodes that have her suffer for it. But she could have been fired for being a crummy actress, not for expressing views on Twitter. And I think it's an unfortunate thing that people are being fired for that. On the other hand, Disney's always had this kind of very squeaky clean image. They're very careful about who they associate with, except people who are killing Uyghurs, that they were happy to. But they've always tried to maintain this family image, and so they're a kind of company you'd expect to do things like this with anything controversial. But still, I think it's unfortunate.
A point that I have emphasized is that 1 month after the storming of the Capitol, is this what Trump fans need to hear? That there are Jews in Germany? I mean, it's like we've already seen how volatile people can be when Trump keeps telling them this is the biggest election theft ever. Is this I was sort of emphasizing that at a time when I've seen so little self-reflection on the right in the aftermath of what took place. I find it understandable that people are kind of afraid of that type of rhetoric being added.
Yeah, I mean, in my view, the whole right, including the relatively serious right, like the Wall Street Journal say, as opposed to Breitbart or whatever, has a serious rationalization and evasion of the fact that Trump's evil problem. I think it's easy to see that he is if you really think about it and what he did. And I think the right's been a machine, the right-wing media, including better right-wing media, much of it has been a machine to get the better people who properly really hate the left to ignore that fact by sensationalizing all the bad things that the leftists do, often taking them out of context, but often just finding whatever one is acurrent that you can use to distract attention from the fact of what Trump and his cronies have been doing. But that is not a reason to then, in response to it, excuse bad things by leftists and say that they're not bad. We have to, find a way when all the media, left or right, that you look at is trying to grab your attention with the latest thing to outrage you about the other person, to figure out how to keep it in proportion, which things are the most important now, and not either react against either side, which would include excusing leftist things because you're upset about Trump. So it's hard to do, and it takes some thought to think about. And I don't have this all worked out. Like, how do you keep your sense of proportion when any source that you're looking at is trying to distract and outrage you?
I do want to say thank you to Yaron, because I know you also have to leave.
Yep. Thanks, guys. And all of you listening, don't stop the super chat. Keep it going.
Thanks. And we will see you next week.
Sounds good. Bye.
Thanks.
I have another kind of silly comment to make just on the aesthetics of this show, which is somewhat out of date because Harry left. But I find it interesting that Lee has superimposed himself onto Mars, and Harry, when he was here, had superimposed himself into his own backyard.
Wait a minute. I'm here on Mars. What do you mean superimposed?
Well, then you've become blurry. I don't know what's wrong with your outlines.
Yeah, that's millions of miles away.
Shoshana, so how is it there in Virginia alone?
Mars is actually just down the hall. Have to tell the truth.
We have a wormhole. We have a wormhole here.
I see.
Yes. And in fact, Mars is located not too far from Christiansburg, where this morning, 2 people who were on the square got some COVID vaccines. So it's a happy day.
Well, congratulations to whichever 2 those are. Excellent. Good. That's really good news. Good to hear.
Well, all right. There have been a few spoilers, by the way, for who some of our next speakers are. But let's continue with Greg, because Greg, you did, I think, one of the best events we've done in the past year, which was and certainly one of the best events in terms of reaching non-objectivist audiences, which is the event you did with Brendan O'Neill, who's one of the top intellectuals in the UK, a self-declared libertarian Marxist. I don't know if you want to explain what that means. I don't think he did.
He should explain what it means.
Yes.
Or maybe Nikos, who's got the expertise in that corner of intelligentsia.
Yeah, let's put it this way. If it weren't probably from Brendan, I would still be, okay, maybe not. But he was a big influence on me. So, but yeah, that's why, by the way, in the beginning, we're talking about how we try to reach new audiences. So having people like Brendan, who have their own big audience, interact with objectivists like Greg, or we had him also in a couple of other events, is part of the things that we have in our arsenal for approaching new audiences. But so Razi doesn't really trust me for these discussions, because his line is, well, you're gonna start telling these people how much you love them. No, we need to have someone else to really challenge them. So yeah, that's why.
So I get to be bad cop. Is that the idea?
Yeah, you get to be bad cop, and I get to be chair. Best case.
Okay. No, I thought that was a really good event, and I thought also Yaron's debate with I forget his last name, Toby, the guy who's part of the free speech union, was really good. I think these issues around free speech are really interesting, and it's in part. I mean, my view is most of the groups that say they're pro free speech now and are fighting for it are not pro free speech, although they are. In fact, concerned about real problems that need addressing. And I think that's true of the Spike magazine kind of communist or neo-Marxist crowd. And I think it's true of the Free Speech Union group. But I think these are people that it's really worth talking to and getting clear on what these issues are and how deep the issues go. And precisely because I think they're smart, interesting people with real legitimate concerns that they're misconceptualizing, and that objectivism is the only view that really has things to say about this. That's a really, I think, kind of deeply pro free speech view. That is, if you don't understand that boycotts and canceling are part of free speech, then you don't understand free speech and you're not for it. Now, that doesn't mean boycotts and canceling are good. Just like speech isn't always good. If, I don't know, someone says the most horrible thing, praising Hitler or something, that's not good that he's doing that. It's good that he's free to do it, but it's awful that he's doing it. And the rest of us have to use our freedom to respond to that appropriately. This guy's, a Nazi or whatever. And that applies to companies boycotting, like the boycott of the Hollywood 10 back in the 50s and so forth, or 40s. And that includes things that are going on now. And one really has to draw those distinctions. There's a typical, at the time, right, there was back in with the blacklists in Hollywood, there were all these communists in America clamoring about free speech, meanwhile apologizing for Stalin, who was getting rid of it. Now, I think I think the people who are from that kind of Marxist background talking about free speech today really believe it and aren't kind of cynical in the way I think a lot of the American apologists for Stalin were. But the principle is the same. They're getting the ideas from the same kinds of places. And we have to understand that you can't separate economic freedom and intellectual freedom, freedom of speech and freedom to put your money behind creating platforms, places to speak, paying things. And there's a really big, and no one, not the ACLU, not the kind of right-wingers who think Twitter censoring them, not really anyone other than, I think, objectivists are really, and not even all of them, are really get the point on this issue. So I think it's a great point for intellectual engagement. And I was really happy to be part of that thing with O'Neill, and I'd be happy to do more.
Yes, and these are the kind of events that alienate some parts of our audience sometimes. But as you said, it is necessary because it is the difference between having a principled approach and not having a principled approach. And when you don't have a principled approach, you end up becoming the fifth phalanx, let's say, of the cause that supposedly of the enemy of the cause you support. So yeah, it's important to have this discussion, but also at the same time, it's important to keep a good relationship with this other side because you're gonna need them in other battles. So for example, personally, I agree with you. I have many disagreements with Free Speech Union, but to be honest, despite the disagreements, I'm a member of it because I work in a university, I teach in a university, and the idea is if I ever go down, I'm gonna do it with a lot of noise. So in the world we live in, it's almost a necessity that, and I think we had a behind the scenes discussion where you say, look, if you live, let's say, in a war zone and you have some bodyguards who are some edgy people, sometimes when you find yourself in that situation, that's the way to operate.
Yeah, you have to, when you're stuck in a tribal war zone, you might have to seek the support of the tribe that you're not closer to, but the way tribes work, tribal conflicts work, is the thing that holds the tribe together is hatred of the enemy. Like if the Democratic Party was destroyed, the Republican Party would cease to exist the following day. They don't have anything in common except that they dislike the Democrats. And the same exact thing is true of the Democrats with respect to the Republicans. There's no love lost between these people. There are groups of them that have something in common, just like there are groups of the Republicans who have something in common. And likewise, these kind of like, same thing with racial tribal groups. What they're brought together by is hatred of the other. So if there's a situation where you have, you fear imminent threat from the one group, if there's a group that's brought together to hate them, I think it's okay, sometimes good and right, to be involved with it as a defensive alliance. But it's a dangerous thing to form and be involved with defensive alliances against other people, that you could internalize the worldview of the essential thing about the world is this other group is evil. And who cares what we're for? We're together as being against that. And I think it takes a lot of work to notice that that's not true, and then find the people in each of the groups that know that that's not true. The people in your group who say, look, I'm not with these guys come hell or high water about everything. I'm working with them now temporarily to face this threat. But the way I think about it is if you're in a neighborhood that's dominated by the Crips and the Bloods are out to get you, and the Crips will protect you, then it's okay to be part of the Crips, or to work with the Crips somewhat if that's your only protection. But you want to be working at, how do I get to this neighborhood, not be dominated by the Crips and the Bloods? Or how do I get to another neighborhood? And some of the people in the Crips are going to be there because they're afraid of the Bloods and know that this whole thing is a bad situation. And there are probably some people in the Bloods like that too. And you've got to kind of figure out how to make those factions dominate. And not think of those factions as moderates, but think of the ones among them who are looking for a principle that's better than the current way of conflict. And I mean, I think that's how to deal with these kind of political conflicts generally.
Razi, can we also say one thing about Greg as a mentor within the objectivist community when it comes to younger, aspiring activists? So Greg had a huge impact, obviously, in my development. He helped me a lot with the book. He helped me a lot in my initial steps, and he still does. And he has been so benevolent also to ARC UK with advice on difficult issues, not advice on how to understand concepts, which is super important, but advice on things that someone might even be uncomfortable asking someone who's not someone very close. So do you want to also say something about that?
Well, I was going to say, since we're, sort of surprising the audience with who the next guest is, one that I'm not going to surprise you with, because you see him on our channel frequently, and you and he will talk later about what it is that you do that's not on our channel, is James Valiant, with whom we have the discussions on Peikoff's courses on Saturdays and Rand's essays on Wednesdays. Now, specifically on the Peikoff courses, it was one of those days where we we had one of those philosophical arguments that we couldn't really figure out, and I ended up calling Greg at midnight that Saturday. I mentioned that on Clubhouse a few days ago, trying to figure out. I'm not going to say what the philosophical issue is, because we'll leave that to Clubhouse. Ask us on Clubhouse if you want to know. But yeah, I called Greg that night. I called a few other objectivist intellectuals throughout the week. At some point, we said, the advantage of doing everything online is we can have objectivist intellectuals there without having to fly them over. And yeah, that was so.
Hey, Robbie, give me a hint. Give me a hint about what this issue was.
It's
whether it was okay to associate with this background guy. They heard all this horrible stuff about it. I had to set them straight that you're a good people.
No, the topic was it was the Peikoff lecture on the possible, the probable, the certain, and the arbitrary. And so part also for people to get an insight on how the Saturday course, which is for members, operates is I give some homework questions, which are part based on the course, but it's about the applications of the principle in everyday situations, so to speak. And then we come back on Saturday and we discuss them with the participants and with James. And one of the statements were, for example, O.J. Simpson actually did it, or for example, so various levels of things that you can find from a Googling, or three things that were completely arbitrary. For example, Razi is a spy of KGB infiltrating ARC UK, this kind of stuff. So one of the statements that in my mind, but not also in my mind, I came to it as arbitrary is there is extraterrestrial life. And Razi, once every 5 months, agrees with me, and it happened to be one of the things he agreed with me. Yes, that's why I said it's related to your background. Anyway, so turns out
this thing behind me.
Yes, so this
thing behind me is.
Yeah, so that was the context. But turns out some of the members thought it's possible, and even more thought it's probable. So Razi gets really, really angry, philosophically angry. I would say also maybe actually angry. He starts calling objectivist intellectuals at midnight. But this led to something very good. This led to James joining the Saturday courses. But Razi, do you want to tell the rest of the story? I mean, that was the story, but do you want to?
Yeah, I think you told the whole story. And yeah, I do want to actually leave for later the discussion between you and James, because I think it's important that people know what we do on Saturdays. But I will say that, by the way, this Saturday, we're going to have a session that's going to be open to people who are not members, and it's going to be not on, because we just finished Peikoff's course, The Philosophy of Objectivism. The next one we're going to start on the 13th of March is The Art of Thinking. So this Saturday, we're doing a discussion on Peikoff's lecture, Modernism and Madness. And the following Saturday, ARI has an event, and we are not going to be on because we don't want to.
Could I say a word or two about the center?
Absolutely, yeah.
So I just want to say there was a period when there were some things, ARI was starting to have speaking things in Europe, or I was going to Europe for various reasons, sometimes at ARI's behalf, sometimes not. And I really like London. So I would always fly through London or stop in London and wanted to do something in London on the way there, or I was just going there for social reasons. And I would always ask the people at ARI, why are there no objectivist events in London? I mean, they speak English. It seems like, it would be more promising than Bulgaria or wherever I would have thought. But there just, it seemed like nothing was going on. And there was an Ayn Rand meetup, and there were a few people about it, and it was a good group of people. And I would go and talk to them occasionally, but it would be four guys in a pub talking about something. And they were good conversations in the pub, but I was always a little bit like, why, seems weird. London's a big city. Why is nothing going on? And then suddenly Razi was in charge of it. And I don't know the story of how it is Razi, how exactly Razi took the helm. But suddenly it was lecture halls. And why don't you debate this guy you haven't heard of that I've now got to read up on before I show up? And just, he made something interesting, big, a community there, exciting and quickly. And I think that and Nikos became very involved also. And I think that is something that when you have someone doing that kind of work is really valuable and should be supported. And I always look forward now to going to London and having the center there doing things. So that's one, I think that's something that really deserves to be valued. And it's a reason why I support the center and have, whenever people ask me or whatever, say these are people to, encourage and help with what they're doing. And I'm happy to help fundraise here for that reason. And then the other part of it is Yaron Brook and Ankar Gate gave a talk years and years ago about what's involved in successful movements and what it would look like for the objectivist movement to really grow. And one of the points they made that I think is really important is it can't all be centrally controlled through one organization, ARI. ARI, I think, is a great organization. I think it's by far and by many orders of magnitude the best producer of objectivist content in one, institutional producer of objectivist content. It's really good. It's very high quality. But precisely because of that, there's a lot of slow, if you're trying to maintain that level, you can't experiment as much. You can't do things as quickly. There are risks you might not want to take. And I think there's need for there to be a lot of other groups, particularly since, thinking it happens at the individualistic level, composed by opinionated people, trying different things, exploring different ideas and different challenges to the ideas and different debates that arise in connection with them, and just different ideas on how to promote things. Risk-taking, I mean, suppose you, with a good enough sense of humor to make this comment, suppose you encounter somebody who's a really articulate, bright, interesting guy interested in objectivism, who's also famous as the maker of novelty rap parody videos that are thought by many to be offensive, some in bad taste, whatever. Seems like, I don't know who I'm talking about here. Yeah. How do you work with such a guy? In what place is this someone to be? Do you encourage what, there's clearly value here. It's not obvious, what way to explore and pursue it. What about, do we debate this guy who's a Marxist who's running this magazine, or do we co-sponsor an event with him, or what? Like, there are all kinds. There's a sociology professor who's just came out of some Communist Manifesto reading group, but seems like really bright and interested in objectivism. What's the kind of gateway for dealing with and working with these people? What are the paths to expand? Now, both of the people I mentioned who are on the call are also students in the ARC and involved with ARI in various ways, and I think that's good. But there's need for other organizations and groups that can experiment, try things out. It becomes apparent how much value there is in certain people or certain approaches that might not be obvious if you have institutional needs to move more slowly, play things a little safer. And I think ARC UK has been really fantastic at this. It's brought talent to the fore that people might not have known to look for. It's pioneered some new ways of doing things to promote objectivism. It's, some of us, Ben at ARI and me and some others have been experimenting a little bit with Clubhouse, but there's only so much time we're going to be able to devote to it. You guys are sort of all in on Clubhouse, and it's great that someone is. So I think this is just a group that's really worth promoting, and that's including when it has people on or does things that I don't think as well of. In the case of both Raka and Nikos, these are people who I've been really impressed by. There have been some shows with people I don't, think as well of. But that's part of the nature of having something that's more experimental, a little bit more freeform. And I think it's really important that there be that as part of a healthy, growing intellectual movement. And so I'm really pleased to see ARUK develop in that direction.
Thanks, Greg. And actually, on that last point, well, I can't officially announce it, but I was talking to a prominent objectivist who thinks that some of our events probably are not the right way to promote objectivism, and we will hopefully have a debate between him and myself on our channel soon about what kind of content helps and what kind of content might actually do more harm than good. Yeah, on the point about, well, I appreciate the compliments about how we grew things here in London. We were actually going, and we still might have at some point, a chat. I see that George isn't on the Zoom call yet, but yeah, George, who was running the London Ayn Rand meetup before me, might join us later, and then he and I might have a little chat, and we'll talk about the history there. And yeah, great.
It was George and a guy before George, as I recall, and both of them were good groups. It's just, it wasn't scaling, and he found a way to really change that.
Thanks. And yeah, if you can stick around, I want to bring in Jonathan Honig, because you mentioned, well, you mentioned Raka, but I was thinking about how, yeah, I'm one of the many things I'm proud of that we've done is the fact that, yeah, there are these people who have an audience that they got not as objectivists, not as objectivist intellectuals. They got an audience because they did something that others found valuable. They know how to talk, and we have them on a show on a weekly basis or several times a week, talking, applying objectivism to the best of their understanding. And that's something we also, I think, make clear on the show as often as we possibly can, that this is, to the best of the understanding of the people talking. And unfortunately, we only have 2 of the 3 people I'm referring to here today, because Mark Pellegrino is on his way to Pennsylvania. I hope there's still electricity, in some places on the way, because I'm sure he has to stop. But Jonathan Honig is with us. Jonathan.
Thank you, Razi. And your enthusiasm for objectivism and for building something in the UK, I know has been infectious for me and so many people on this call. It's been a real pleasure for me, a selfish pleasure for me, truly, to be involved with the Ayn Rand Center UK, the Daily Objective. But even going back to some of the in-person events that you organized around the publication of a new textbook of Americanism, even back then, your love for this material and your love for the evangelizing it was just apparent even back then. So thank you for all those efforts. Thank you for making me a part of it and bringing all these superstars, Shoshana, Ellen, James, Lee, all these superstars of objectivism that I learned from. I'm a complete student of objectivism, and being a part of the Ayn Rand Center UK is very fulfilling in that sense. So keep it up. Thank you for making me part of it, and look forward to another great year ahead.
Thanks, Jonathan. And you mentioned the events we did. So I think it was OCon 2018. This was before a new textbook of Americanism came out. You told me that it's coming out. You told me, why don't I do an event in London? And my reaction was, an event? What do you mean an event in London? You're going to fly all the way to London for one event. So yeah, this is a new textbook of Americanism, by the way. If you don't have it, get it. Actually, this is the Hebrew translation of it, if you prefer to read it translated. And yeah, and we did 5 events in 5 days across the country. That's one of the great things about promoting objectivism in the UK, and why I think this might be the place to promote it, is the fact that with all due respect to the translators, I was a translator before I started doing this, but the translations are never as good as the original. So there's no need to translate. And the UK, besides being an English speaking, relatively intellectually curious culture, it's also a small country, so we can travel around it and come back.
And we had great turnout, and Nikos had great turnout, and Andy Bernstein, and I know Razi Rucka, you had a great turnout when you were there as well. So and Greg too. So let's keep that up in the new year ahead, and with the support of your listeners and your subscribers, we can continue to do that.
Can I throw in a quick thought? So like, I mean, bringing it back, circling back to James Valiant, a underrepresented member of this call, by the way. I listened to the weekly group study that ARCUK does, right? I began participating or listening to it. And I heard Mr. Valiant mention that Leonard Peikoff used to have like a group of people at his house to study, but it wasn't all like philosophy PhD students. It was like a doctor, an engineer, an artist, maybe a janitor. Like it was kind of like this diverse group of people, and it got me thinking. Like that's kind of an aspect of what ARCUK is doing. We've got Jonathan, the finance / infotainment type of personality. There's whatever it is that I am. Mark is an actor. Like that's just, the Daily Objective. We've got a sociology professor, I think is what Nikos is technically. He's given me like the maybe signal. So like there's something for everybody.
The world's only objectivist sociologist professor.
But the first of many, I'm sure. And yeah, so it's kind of nice. Like there's something for everybody. And it is very concretizing or something. There's something it makes these ideas real to see people that are not career intellectuals or not philosophers, to just kind of talk about things that are with a perspective that's informed by objectivism.
Well, yeah, it's really been a great pleasure and privilege to participate in this, but I really want to interrupt this love fest with a correction. You guys have to stop using the term meetup. I've been to lots of different meetup kind of local groups in the Southern California area. This is a symposium. What you are doing are symposia, sir. And when you have Harry Binswanger, when you've got Shoshana, when you've got Ellen, when you've got Don, when you've got Andy Bernstein, you guys have taken it to a different level. It's true, what you're doing is sending up a flare, a giant neon sign, read Ayn Rand, for which there is no substitute. But you have taken the discussion on the internet to an entirely different level. This is not just a meetup group. On the other hand, what you say is absolutely correct. In the mid-1980s, when Dr. Leonard Peikoff invited me to participate in his weekly Saturday evening seminars, and boy, those were symposia. My initial reaction was just that. You want reaction to OPAR before it's been published? I'm not a philosophy PhD. And he immediately brushed that aside and said, there'll be philosophers there, but I want, a cross section of humanity. He did. He had medical doctors there. He had a real estate agent there. He wanted historians, lawyers, doctors. He wanted a multidisciplinary input even before the book came out to give him reaction. And that is kind of what's going on here too. When you guys host debates, I cannot imagine a greater service that you're doing for the objectivist community, because obviously there is an enormous room for debate on several issues of the day, issues about art and politics. And to see us having that rational discussion, I think, is of enormous value. So please, no more meetup. These are symposia, Razi. You've taken this to an entirely different level, and it's been my privilege and honor to participate.
And my new fight with Razi will be to use the Greek plural, which is symposia.
By the way, the reason we call it Meetup is because the platform we used in order to advertise it was meetup.com. That's the only reason. But yeah, and again, in what it was in person in London, every Wednesday was definitely a discussion group. We didn't have intellectuals, but what we're doing now on Saturdays, James, with you is definitely on a different level, and you and Nikos will be discussing that soon. But I want to.
I agree. If we're talking about words, I agree. Meetup is not apt for a lot of the things I see you guys doing, but symposia or symposium strikes me as a little erudite and maybe not best capturing the feel of it. It might lead people to think it's more people in tweed suits sitting around, or else lying on couches getting drunk, which is the original meaning of symposium. So it's, drinking together, as Nikos can tell us. Not because he's Greek, not because he's a lush. And so, it might be some creative thinking about what the best name is that would sound less academic than symposium sounds, but maybe a little, I don't know, more casual, not more
only to have that
intellectual
ancient
than
context, because they were, as you point out, more of a informal party atmosphere sometimes. The idea that you'd have Aspasia, sort of Hitare, sort of as a hostess at a party and an intellectual discussion. Maybe we should look for a bit better word.
Razi, I didn't know. Is it the case that we're not allowed to drink during any of these events?
Well, I'm obviously violating the rules here, but no, you're welcome to drink. And we will figure out the best word. Yeah, that stuff matters. So we'll figure that out. But also there are different types of content that we do. And we're actually mostly now with you, James, talking about what we do on Saturdays, which is members only. But a little bit later on, you and Nikos will talk about what we do on Wednesdays, which is on YouTube and open to everybody. And Don Watkins will be joining this Wednesday. So stay tuned to hear about more about that. But I do want to bring in Shoshana now. Shoshana Milgram is one of the 3 people you see regularly on Fridays, or at least it premieres on Fridays on our YouTube channel. She is on the Psychology of Atlas Shrugged characters, which, as I mentioned, is something I'm very proud of. She was on the channel on a few other events, but I think that's the first thing that people are interested in is that. So Shoshana, welcome.
Okay. Well, I guess I could say something about what to call the enterprise, because where I come from, we're used to the literary salon, which was sort of an elegant event in which all sorts of people would come together and talk about intellectual matters. And unfortunately, these days, people think of a salon in connection with hair. So maybe that's not quite right. But there was a tradition of the literary salon. And in some ways, this feels like that to me, because as you were saying, we have people of many different interests, but they come together with a respect for the word, for art, for thinking. And it's true, I've really enjoyed doing the Psychology of Atlas Shrugged characters. And well, I mean, who could ask for anything more? I mean, it's Atlas Shrugged is a great novel. It's wonderful to talk about it along with Helen Keller and with Andy Bernstein. And one of the things that I think has been fun for me, and this is part of what Razi's put together, is that we do say new things. I've been I've been reading Atlas Shrugged for many decades, and yet I find that I actually learn something from the other speakers and even from what I hear coming out of my own mouth, because the questions are different. And so it's initially, when you first asked me to be part of this, it was going to be on a session with Josh Dixon, who was also, I think, an asset to the enterprise on literature, Wounded to the Soul. And I thought, okay, I'll try it once. As some of you know, sometimes it takes I don't always agree to do things, and I'm busy and so on, but I agreed to do that. And it was really very interesting because Josh asked good questions and the audience asked good questions. People asked me questions about Ayn Rand's literature and other literature. Someone asked me a question about Wuthering Heights, and I thought, oh, that's good. I speak fluent Emily Bronte. I can do this. And then Dostoevsky came up, and I thought, yeah, I can do that. And then when Razi raised the question of doing the psychology of the Fountainhead characters, I thought, yes, especially with the Fountainhead, it's such an internal novel that would be, and the sections are named for the characters. That would be a very good avenue of approach to the novel. So I was happy to do that. And now the Atlas Shrugged series, which I'm also enjoying, and that's a much bigger novel, but it also means that we have more scope for talking about the people. I should mention, although he's not here anymore, that on the Atlas Shrugged series, we do have Andy Bernstein as the disclaimer guy. And Andy always begins by telling the listeners that this is a mystery and we will be spoiling the mystery because it's a book in order to discuss the psychology of the characters. We need to know all about them and not just what we know about them as we proceed. And that series is recorded, and so people can catch up afterwards after they read the book. I guess one way I think about it is that, I enjoy listening to Helen Keller and Andy Bernstein, and hope people enjoy listening to me. I think that we can't take the place of the firsthand experience of reading Ayn Rand's work for the first time. I think we're good, but we're not that good. That we can't replace Ayn Rand, and I certainly hope that we don't. Another enterprise, that part of it that I've been involved with, which has been fun, is I don't run it, but I have gone to many of the We the Living sessions, which are for members, and they're on Friday morning. And I guess I think it's excellent that Razi has a variety of formats, even within my field of literature, because We the Living is being read a chapter at a time with questions ahead of time for people to consider. And I go and I do not run it because I teach regular students. That's my job. That's my day job. And I did not want to turn this into Shoshana's Friday class. But, I speak up, I listen, I hear what other people have to say. And we read together, we get into that novel chapter by chapter, which I think has been quite joyous. I guess I'd like to comment on one more thing, just that's emerged during the call. I noticed that we talked before about Rick in Casablanca and Hank Reardon in Atlas Shrugged and their experience. Nikos brought that up and said that Razi said, well, they're both giants. And Andy said, well, it's a case in which they've lost the love of their lives, but they've retained their self-esteem and so on. Well, no one ever asked me to think about Rick and Hank together before, but I'm sitting here and I'm making notes and I'm thinking, that's actually a very interesting question, because my first thought was that it's not just the character's experience at the end, but all the way through. What's happened to both of them is that in the course of the narrative, they have in fact gained something important for their own soul, and it's related to the relationships. Because, well, you already told us how it turns out. And at the end, Rick says to Ilsa, he says, we'll always have Paris. And they'd lost it, but now they have it and they understand what the experience meant. And well, Hank says that to Dagny, that he tells her that he loves her, and he loves her in a way. I guess we don't have Andy here for disclaimer guy, but yeah, Hank loves Dagny. Oh, well, now you know. And what that actually means and what it has meant to him to get to the point in his life where he knows that. And I think that Rick also has grown. So, and then I started thinking, maybe there's more to say about even that little incident, just trying to talk about the two of them together, because Hal Wallace, who, was producer on Casablanca, and then Warner ran up and grabbed the Oscar away from him. And then Hal Wallace started thinking that maybe he should be going off on his own and not working with Warner anymore. And the next thing you know, Hal Wallace got his own company, and Ayn Rand's the first person he hires as a screenwriter. And under this wonderful situation in which she was to work 6 months a year for him and 6 months a year on Atlas Shrugged. It's kind of like Persephone, right? Half the year above ground, half the year below ground, just saying. But, so it's a coincidence in time, but maybe it's not just a coincidence in time. So anyway, I can't imagine any other situation other than here, because where I'd be thinking about this, although I'm thinking about Rick and Hank together, because, well, a lot of the people who are fond of Casablanca wouldn't understand the issues involved, even the extent to which Rick has grown and what it means to him to have grown, much less to put it together with Hank, and talking about a popular Hollywood movie in connection with this immense novel, which fortunately, according to Penguin in England, is now a modern classic. So I guess what I'm saying is that I have a really good time, and I naturally like you to support something that is a good time. But one aspect of watching us is that I think we all have a good time when we're talking to each other, and we even have a good time when we're disagreeing with each other, because Andy and Ellen and I do obviously agree about the greatness of Ayn Rand, but we don't always agree about everything we say. We actually comment, well, that's a good point, but we don't always see things exactly the same way, and yet still within a context of respect and listening and understanding, and which is a fine thing. So thank you, Rosie, for making the pandemic lovely. For this, the time that we spent together. There's even, I don't want to, I just got my shot today, yay. I don't want the pandemic to last forever, but there is something wonderful about being able to reach across the pond, and also about being able to talk to people, a large number of people, without it being a group. And that reminds me, and I'll make it my last point, that I keep coming back to, well, I'm sure you know what I'm going to say, the line from Atlas Shrugged about that radio broadcast. And it was as if he was there, in not speaking to a group, but in the room with them. And it was not the tone of a man addressing a meeting, but a tone of a man addressing a mind. And I think that we can get that however many people there are here, because, it's a person, a mind, and the mind is our focus. So thank you.
Thank you, Shoshana. And I think it was you I spoke to a week ago or so, when I said a few days after watching the episode about James
Yes.
Taggart, that if the three of you are able to make an hour of my life so enjoyable, when the front and center in my mind is James Taggart, then that's all that needs to be said about this show. So thank you.
Thank you. We did him justice.
Oh yeah. And if you missed the last one, we did Lillian justice as well, although maybe not fully. So there will be some more later on. Emmanuel, thank you for the super chat. Is anyone from ARCUK actually from the UK? Please keep up the great work. More Greg and James, please. So from the UK, as in born here? No, none of us are originally from the UK. Nikos and I both live here. Nikos at the moment isn't here because he would rather...
The Greek tribalist, say it.
He prefers Greek lockdown to British lockdown. I've only experienced one, so I'm not going to comment on which is better. But I hear in Greece you need a text from the government to go for a walk, so might be a little bit worse.
But it's sunny and we're allowed to have fireplaces as opposed to the UK. Anyway, let's bring the next speaker.
Okay, well, the next speaker is one of the surprise speakers, one of the speakers who were not announced. So I will introduce her, and I will introduce her the way I introduced her in October 2019 in person in what was our biggest event in terms of audience, our biggest live event. So I'm not going to do the whole introduction because I watched it recently and it was very, very long and boring. And the nice part at the end, I would have fallen asleep if I was in the audience before getting to it. But I will say that our next speaker is known to the objectivist audience for many reasons, but I think many objectivists will know that many years ago she not that many years ago. She won the Ayn Rand Institute's Fountainhead Essay Contest for 2 years in a row. And what you might not know is that for 3 years in a row at the Ayn Rand Institute's Objectivist Summer Conference, she won the Rosie Ginsburg Award for Best Talk at that conference. And 3 years in a row, by the way, those are my only 3 OCONs that I attended in person. So that's quite the record.
Sorry, can I say something here? So some people might think this is staged. This is so not staged that every time he calls me, whenever he mentions Gina, every time he says the same thing. I said, okay, dude, that's a cool story, but I've heard it like 8 times. No, today, half an hour before we start, he says, Gina says, yes, by the way, what? And he says the same thing. So he really lives it. It's not staged. It's not this kind of cheesy pre-written speech.
And that's OCON 2017, 2018, and 2019. If you want to look it up, yeah, you should. Gina, welcome.
Thank you. As always, I am intimidated to follow the introduction. I don't know.
All right, then I'll just go into.
I can live up to it.
I'll just go into a question, because we did an event that. So actually, when you were here in London, we spoke about your next trip to London and when that might be, and about doing some sort of all-day event about evolutionary psychology, and questioning it, obviously. Mm-hmm. And that never happened because we were thinking sometime in the spring or the summer of 2020. But what did happen was an online event with a quite well-known evolutionary psychologist, and I think probably one of the better ones. So do you wanna tell us a little bit about your experience from that event?
Sure. Well, so I guess, but just as I was thinking about the ways I have participated, and what's been really valuable for me about them, both the debate, whatever we want to call it, discussion with Diana, and the original London talk that you're talking about. What stands out for me in part is that I get to engage with not just the objectivist in crowd, but with people who have real critical questions and people who are actually grappling with the ideas that we're presenting in a way where they're not completely sold yet, or they haven't read all the novels, but they're curious and they're thoughtful. And that I know that made, for example, giving the honesty talk in London a distinct pleasure in ways that I didn't experience at OCON, even though, in some ways I'm on my home court at OCON, I'm among friends. Some of the people in the stories I tell are sitting in the audience, but on the other hand, I am in some ways preaching to the choir, right? And so it was really neat to get some of the kinds of questions, where people are, they haven't already bought into the idea that we have a choice to focus, and that we never fully lose that choice, as long as we're conscious and have our basic cognitive faculties intact. And so they get me to think more critically about my views. And definitely that was a highlight of talking to Diana Fleischman for that evolutionary discussion. She really made me work my intellectual chops, in a way that I don't get to when I'm talking to the people on this call. And it wouldn't necessarily occur to me to ask some of those questions, but some of those questions really need grappling with, questions about the individual differences in the ways that people are able to change, and the kinds of evidence that we would need in order to infer evolutionary, causes or evolutionary explanations. And what's the difference between a just so story and a real converging, evidentiary story that actually leverages our scientific knowledge, of non-human animals and of some of the faculties that we do share in common, and what can we learn from that approach. So it was just really fun to be challenged in that way. And also just, she's done this a lot more than I have. She is really prominent as a public intellectual, and she's appeared on many live and virtual events of this sort, and just knew how to pace it in certain ways. And it was fun to play off of her energy, and to, in some ways, apprentice myself, to someone who I think there's a lot wrong with her ideas, but also she's had a lot more practice engagingly discussing them and summarizing them to a lay audience that's not nerdy and doesn't have all of this technical terminology close at hand. Or maybe it's moderately nerdy, but not to the same degree. So that's something I've really enjoyed and valued, and that I don't get to do enough of, with ideas that explicitly do apply objectivism. You know, I live in two worlds, right? The world of academic psychologists and people who know nothing about objectivism, or at least certainly that it doesn't come up in conversation. And I'm wearing my one hat there, and then, you know, you guys and the kind of objectivist world on the other hand, and rarely do I get to intermingle them. So I really appreciated that opportunity.
And yeah, I know you have to go very soon, but quickly I want to say, yeah, that event we did live in 2019. So I asked in my intro how many people have read Rand, and I don't actually remember, but it was definitely, there were definitely more hands that stayed down than you would see at Ocon. So I think that was and that's something we realized with the live events here, because we had Josh Dixon, who Shoshana mentioned, who is still going to be on our channel from time to time. He's just very busy with other things at the moment. But he was giving lectures on psychology quite frequently, and those would get an audience with very little effort on my part, like less effort than when an objectivist intellectual who's sort of known to objectivists comes to London to talk about ethics or politics. So there's a whole, I think there's a whole sort of avenue in terms of promoting objectivism through psychology, because that is where, you know, when people think about their own life and wanting to make it better, they go to psychology. They don't go to philosophy, because philosophy is you know, what they're expecting there is not exactly, you know, coherent and actionable. So and I know, well, you're definitely leading the charge in terms of objectivist psychologists, or among the people leading the charge, and I think that's you know, something that makes my life much easier, because when we have people like you who are able to talk about this, promoting the idea, for me, it's just, you know, putting together the events and letting the intellectuals do the intellectual work. So thank you for that.
Well, thank you for doing your part. You know, you're building the podium so that then I can speak from it. And that's not something that I either necessarily know how to do or have the bandwidth to do so. So thank you for your part in it.
Thank you. Thanks again, and I appreciate that. And our next speaker, we will go immediately to the next speaker, because we said it will be on for 3 hours. We'll try to make it only 3 hours. Our next speaker is somebody who has also spoken several times on the channel, and well, he besides his talks being, I think, of also a unique, his approach is unique to thinking, and I'm gonna leave it to him to explain, because I'm sure I'm gonna botch it. But yeah, that has I think also helped us reach a very similar audience to the one we're trying to reach with psychology. So Lee Pearson is with us. Hey, Lee.
Oh, hi, Razi. Thank you. Well, you know, a lot of the points I was thinking of making have been made by, you know, Greg and Don and people are here, and Nikos and so on. So I'm maybe reduced to rehashing, which is not my usual favorite thing. But let me think for a moment here. Just about before I say anything about myself, about the center. And then I think, again, the excellent points have already been made there, but there are two things that strike me especially. That first of all, you're the cutting edge of live discussion of cutting edge material, of the cutting edge of ideas related to objectivism. I think there's more of that kind of stuff going on with you guys than anywhere else, and there's nothing more important than that, in my opinion, to be right on the edge and discussing right on the edge. And you've got a lot of that going on. You are, I guess, the perhaps the world center of discussion of psychoepistemology, because the three psychoepistemologists not to be confused with the Three Stooges. That's a different group of people. The three psychoepistemologists have all been, that I know of, you know, there are certainly other people out there thinking about these things, but people that are really been serious about it for a long time. There's three of them, and you've got all three, you know, and I hope that's going to come. Maybe we'll all get together with that second go on the reactive subconscious, where we all of us have different, maybe even sharply differing views, yet friendly views. The other thing is that it's already to mention is that you're very much interested in getting to the non-objectivist audience, which is a hard thing to do. That's very difficult to do, but of course extremely important. You don't want to just be preaching to the choir. It's okay to preach to the choir sometimes, but that is not the primary means by which progress is going to be made in the world. And I appreciate your efforts at doing that. I am actually amazed by the amount of stuff that you guys have been able to do. That's good stuff in a short period of time. I think unprecedented. At least I can't think of anything like it in the last year or so. How you guys have come up and become, you know, now everybody's asking you, do you guys actually just live in England, or are you all over the world? Well, you're all over the world, and that's a great thing. For myself, of course, you've given me a chance to bring up some ideas about the nature of thinking, the nature of consciousness, the nature of free will, the nature of introspection, consciousness in relation to artificial intelligence, which is a hot, cultural item now. It's a big item. If they get more of that discussion, and how objectivism relates to that, that's a good thing. And so I definitely appreciate the opportunity to do that. I hope I can do more. I'd like to convince you to get me in on this thing coming up on Saturday about the art of thinking, because I have some, how should I say, some strong views about what Dr. Peikoff said. And it's a very interesting lecture series, but I think there's some interesting tensions between what he says in the first half of that lecture series and what he says in the second half. There's a very interesting tension there that I have some thoughts about. So maybe Razi, you can think about that, whether you want to.
Absolutely,
we can discuss
that is happening. People join the membership program to be a part of that.
Let's give some context, Razi, about this Saturday. So normally what we do.
Wait, it's not this Saturday that we're talking about, though.
Yeah, but that's what I'm about to say. So normally we take a course and we do the whole course, and this is only for members. But because we finished the first course for this year, the philosophy of objectivism, before we start the second course, we do something like a teaser, or however they're called, event. So instead of doing a course, we do one particular lecture this Saturday, and it's open to everyone. It's not only open to members, which is going to be the art of thinking, and the normal Saturday people.
This Saturday's
This Saturday is open to everyone, and it's, what's the name of the topic of the lecture? Modernism and madness. Modernism and madness. So only for one Saturday, two special things this Saturday. Open to everyone, one-off lecture. So not the whole course, only the lecture, which means you can just listen to the lecture and take a taste of what is happening. So what's going to happen is at some point towards the end of the week, I'm going to post some questions on WhatsApp. Some preliminary discussion is going to start there. And then on Saturday, we reconvene to the actual session. James is there, as always, to help us. And that's how it runs. And this is a tasters. Yes.
Let me just explain, because you mentioned WhatsApp. So that's in a WhatsApp group that's members only.
Members only.
For people who aren't members, we will post this on the London Ayn Rand meetup in a few days. So that's where you can sign up to this Saturday's event.
Okay.
But let's get back
but this Saturday's not the. Okay, get back to me. But there's actually, this is related, because one of the things that Dr. Peikoff suggests, so to say, in that art of thinking in the first half, is that you should suppress your doubts once you've reached certainty about a certain issue. And I must say, I do not ever do that. I suppress nothing. And I'm a believer in suppressing nothing. And I haven't seen anything be suppressed, any ideas being suppressed in your, of all the things I've seen so far. Maybe they are, maybe it's behind the scenes. Maybe Nikos is heavily suppressed. He looks a little, no, he doesn't look that suppressed.
It's more like the other way
anyway,
around.
that is the other way around. You suppress Razi. So I personally do not believe in suppressing either any feelings or thoughts, either one, because you don't have to act on your emotions, and you don't have to believe a thought that just pops into your head. So there is absolutely no danger whatsoever that in my opinion, that requires suppression. Well, now I've given you my basic position, but anyway.
Yeah, but Lee, I was going to say, first of all, you're triggering James. He would love to jump in here, and that's the kind of content that we want to keep, for members only. We have a bunch of new members, so they will all get to enjoy this.
I see.
And,
it's also, I don't think, a fair description of, or accurate description anyway, of what Leonard recommends in the course. But you guys can
that's
out on Saturday.
That should be discussed. That should be discussed.
But I just wanted to give the people who disagree with you on that would not agree that you're suppressing left and right. They would.
I have a lot more to say about that. I have a lot more to say about that, but this is not the time for that discussion. But
well,
anyway,
we all can't be in the enviable position of Lee and never have a baseless doubt.
A lot of my doubts are baseless, but I don't have to act on them, and I don't have. They're not a threat to me, and I guess I consider myself to be good at self-correction. So I don't. It doesn't worry me if I have a doubt that's inadequately based.
Well, you see, this is exactly the kind of discussion though that we do have, and that you guys
exactly so
medium
and
for.
And notice there's been no animosity, no tearing out of throats, no initiation of force. None of that stuff's going on here, which
I do think that's a really good lecture series. It's one I remember having a big impact on me when I first heard it. So it's good to hear you guys.
It's a very interesting one. It's very interesting. The issue about certainty and the fact that you can be certain and still mistaken is a really important point, and it relates to this other issue in that lecture series. And I don't think that would have been brought up. I don't think that had been brought up before. I don't recall it myself being brought up before that lecture series. Maybe it was, but I don't remember it. So,
well,
let me leave it at that. You've got a few more things to do, don't you, Razi? Or
yeah. Well, since we are already on the topic of Saturdays, Nikos and James, I think this is probably one of the most important parts of the show, because this is where we
let me just say one more thing.
Yeah.
One more thing. Shauna was advocating having a salon. I guess I was advocating having a saloon. But actually, sorry about that. But actually, my favorite drink is Diet Cherry Zero. So I'm not exactly a heavy drinker, but I don't know. But if somebody wants to drink some, wine or whiskey, why not?
James and Nikos.
Okay, so we've already said a lot about I've said a lot of things about the Saturday Leonard Peikoff series courses. So I will leave it to James, and maybe James can say something about how he sees these sessions. And most importantly, James, what can someone take out of these sessions? So who are these sessions for?
I'm aiming for exactly the kind of people that you're looking for here. There is a level at which you have to, for the Saturday sessions, I've already, been introduced to Objectivism. Presumably you've read Atlas Shrugged and The Fountainhead, and presumably you have some familiarity. But what it is an active discussion that I hope we're having, where we're really thinking about it and chewing the ideas in real time. To see that happen, to process verbally the material that people are just still initially grappling with, I think is an invaluable service. When I first read Ayn Rand, I had I was pretty much alone in my own little bubble. And if I had had this network that you guys are creating, an ability to ask my questions and chew it with someone who already maybe thought through that issue before, it would have been an invaluable experience to me. And I hope we're providing an experience like that for young students of Objectivism. As you point out, we're all still in the process of trying to figure it out. None of us are Ayn Rand, but in the process of chewing it together, we come to a better, I think, appreciation for Ayn Rand's radical achievement in ideas. Some of these discussions have been really, really helpful, not only, I think, in my own thinking, but in terms of the way we present the ideas. You don't have to quote back verbatim Ayn Rand. What's important is to kind of put it in your own words, to do that bit of translation in your own head. Very often in our culture, there are overlapping ideas, similar ideas, that I think we ignore because we don't do that translation, when it really is just a matter of translation. And we can find that there's actual intellectual overlap in a lot of different cultural areas. And I think the reverse is also true. We let certain ideas go by that are of significance. We don't realize their significance because we don't integrate them. We don't chew it like that. And whether it's daily objective, talking about the issues of the day, but most especially on our Saturdays, we can get into philosophical issues in some depth. And that's really where the in-depth, I think, stuff goes on, because we can do it over even more than one Saturday. We can, what I've been blown away with is how often we are weaving together the ideas from previous episodes, whether it's a Saturday or a Wednesday event. I find myself reweaving those ideas into the discussion, which I think is also a very valuable thing, to see how the ideas, Ayn Rand did not just create a random set of ideas on policy positions on various issues. She had an integrated, systematic philosophy. And the Saturday events allow us to link these things together and really show how it fits together as a system. So
two comments on that, James. So the first about the Saturday event. So you talked about chewing these things up. So that's why, as I said earlier, that my two slogans when I put the questions on the WhatsApp group is, first, explain it to me as if I'm your 15-year-old cousin. Second, don't give me the party line. So we discussed, for example, last week something about a German company investing in Soviet Union. And there was a very long question based on that. But the rule is, don't tell me this is sanctioning evil, because this, to my non-objective self, this doesn't tell me anything. Explain to me why this is a good or a bad choice. And through the discussion, you explain actually, and the participants explain why it's a bad choice. Another thing that James has been of a very big value to us has been on the historiography of the movement and of things around the movement. So we did some events that could very easily go bad, in a way of going to bad taste, where we talk about figures, institutions, films, where in our view, they misrepresent objectivism. But the point of having James there is that this is not just throwing mud and saying, oh, these people are bad, we are the real deal, you're not the real deal. It's mostly to understand, what does it mean to represent something in a good or a bad way? Where can you go wrong when you try to advocate objectivism? And for example, to give the example of the films, why is it that it's so easily that a film that can start with the best intentions can go and lead to a result which is not good? So again, as I said many times, James has given a completely different dynamic to the center. So many thanks for that, James. And obviously, kudos to Razi, who is behind basically everything, obviously, but also specifically of bringing James in.
It's been my pleasure, my privilege, my honor, and my education as well. So thank you.
Yeah, well, we first had James on the channel, wasn't that long ago, right? Creating Christ, the talk about Creating Christ was it
this
November?
autumn?
October?
Some point this autumn, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it feels like it's only been a couple of months.
Well, the response immediately was overwhelming, and absolutely rightfully so, and then we had you on the next week, I think it was when the BBC had a radio drama titled Ayn Rand, which was a smear job of Rand, of her personal life, of course, not her
Pretty
ideas.
ghastly.
And yeah, people very quickly said, yeah, more of James, please. And we're not populist. We're not going to do something just because the public demands it. But in this case, we completely agreed, and luckily, so did you. And yeah, now James is on the channel at least once a week on our YouTube channel on Wednesdays, live discussing Rand's essays. So this Wednesday, you and Don Watkins will be discussing Rand's essay, What is Capitalism? And then occasionally on the Daily Objective and every Saturday. So thank you, James, for the tremendous work that you do for the Ayn Rand Center UK.
Thank you.
And just to add to that just a little bit, one of James's presentations afterwards, he and I had a hours-long conversation, and it's the sort of thing that happens on your platform that may not happen nearly as often anywhere else. It was a great conversation. We disagreed, and yet nobody died, nobody got hurt, and it was a lot of fun. A lot of learning went on both sides. So that's the sort of thing that happens here. That's great, right?
We may disagree sometimes, Lee, but you stimulate my thinking every time, and so thank you.
And that's what happened to me, to both of us, and that's what this is all about, as far as I can see.
And I think it's going to happen soon as well in our chat on the art of thinking, right? So yeah, for anybody who hasn't yet signed up to the membership program, that alone is value for money. Nikos, there is something else that you want to tell us about. We are at the 3-hour mark, although we started like three minutes late. So I think
yeah, obviously with all these great guests we had, this is not the grand finale. This is just something that, because of the schedule, we present at the end, because we carried away with everything else. So this is a new, let's say, I don't want to call it service, how to call it, a new program, a new session, which is again for members. And we call it the Productivity Hub. And here's the idea behind it. So most of the people who are involved with their centers, again, they're interested, they're passionate about their careers. What they see in Objectivism is this opportunity to develop as personalities, to develop their skills, to become better, but also to absorb information and to share this information with people who hopefully share more or less a similar worldview. So all of us, or most of us, are reading quite often books about productivity, books about self-development, books about entrepreneurship and these things. And we thought we're going to have a monthly meeting where we discuss either one book or one productivity method or one particular skill. For example, it could be public speaking or creating media content or this kind of stuff. Or we're going to discuss a particular entrepreneurial mastermind. For example, Steve Jobs, Gary Vee. So what is special about them? But this is not just a discussion. So this also has the character that we do the heavy lifting so that you don't have to. Not that we think for you, but we read the book, if it's a book, for example. We create a short guideline, we create a short summary, and then we give you this if you don't want to read, for example, the whole book, and you have it there and you can discuss. So Raz, is it okay if I share screen and show some of the notes for the first meeting?
Yeah.
Or are we breaking in, do you think, any intellectual
are you able to share your screen? Do you need me to give you permission?
No, I need you to give me permission.
Yeah, you have it.
Okay. So the first book we're going to discuss, and actually the first discussion is going to take place in 2 weeks. Sorry, not this Sunday, the Sunday after. The first book we're going to discuss is Extreme Ownership. And Extreme Ownership is also a book, but also a concept, a notion. And it has gained a lot of popularity. So what we do with these notes is, again, this is not our material, and we give credit to the authors, this is only for personal use. But here's an example of what this Productivity Hub will give. So we give the general idea of the book. We give a clip where you can get what the book is mostly about. And then we break it down by chapter. So we give you a very quick review of the chapter. We give you a review of the main principles involved. So you can come to the session, and if you haven't got the time to read the book, you can get an idea about the book, what the book is about. But also, very importantly, besides talking about the principles of the book, asking questions from an objectivist point of view. So trying to understand what are these good principles, and are they not are they into accordance, but how can they fit within, let's say, the objectivist point of view? How can they fit within our system of values, if we share such a system of values? Or what is not good maybe in this method? So this is the idea of the Productivity Hub. So again, it has two characters. The one character is we all read it and we discuss it. The other character is if it's one of these famous books or methods. So for example, the getting things done, this kind of methods. And you always wanted to do something about it, but you haven't got the time because again, we're all very, very busy. You can be part of it and get hopefully the main idea, but also try to understand this idea from an objectivist point of view and relate it to other things that we have discussed in other sessions or related to the ideas of Ayn Rand. And again, this is, I have to clarify this, we're not professionals on that. This is just an effort, again, of coming together, putting our thoughts together and exchanging thoughts and hopefully getting something out of this, becoming more productive, eliminating things such as procrastination, becoming better public speakers, becoming better communicators. So we thought this is something that is missing. It takes a lot of work, so we're going to do it once every month. And we're going to see based on demand, maybe we can do it slightly more often. And that's the new thing. Again, it's available for members. And I think you're going to get a good value out of it. If nothing else, every month you get some good information. So what you saw is just a preview of the first chapter. The book has 12 chapters, and we're going to do the same for every book or skill or project. Razi.
Yeah, thanks, Nikos. And by the way, that's the first that I've seen of that booklet, but I think the booklet represents something that, you and I talk about how we often disagree about things. One thing we're in agreement on, and I think everybody working at the Ayn Rand Center UK, behind the scenes or in front of the camera, for us, the fact that the people see such value in our work that they want to support it with their money means a lot. And things like the Productivity Hub is something, this was your idea. It was something to give value to members in addition to value that we were already giving. So that's definitely our approach to it. People who support us will continue to get as much as we can give in terms of valuable content, and I don't want to put a word on it, but symposia, salons, or discussions or meetups.
Rob, can you guys break in here with a question for you guys?
Yes.
Yeah.
Just, we've been on this telethon-like thing for a while, but I haven't heard much about the different ways in which we might contribute to the center. If anybody is thinking they want to put in money, but maybe they don't like doing super chat. What are the membership levels? If someone wants to make a one-time donation, is it a subscription thing? What are the options people have, and how do they go about doing it?
Yeah, so we spoke a little bit at the beginning about the fact that as a private company, taking donations is not really an option. Super chats are an option. So when we're live, that's obviously a very good way to support us. For memberships, as we said, that is the best way from our point of view. AynRandCenter.co.uk/membership. And by the way, I want to thank the many people who have joined in the past 3 hours. We are aware that, there people might want to support us, but not in these two ways. We were hoping to announce some things today. I think what we can announce, although it's not ready yet, is there will be at least one T-shirt that's coming up that people can buy. It's a great T-shirt. So we are not ready to debut it yet. We're also looking into YouTube memberships, which is something that might be a little bit cheaper, but then obviously you get less content. And another option is for people who want to support us with bigger amounts is to support, to get in touch with us and then to support specific episodes of shows or entire shows or whatever you think you can support and want to support.
There's a lot of merchandising opportunities going through my head. Maybe Jonathan, the capitalist, is also, his antennas are going off. Like, think about if there's a graphic artist that could sort of illustrate Nikos or something like that, we could sell that on a T-shirt. We could just be basically, you could become a T-shirt company that also does Objectivist Symposium, right? It doesn't, the tax info could just say you're a T-shirt company. It doesn't like interfere with the, the spreading of the studying and spreading of the philosophy.
Or once we are not actually allowed to say the things we say, we can actually pretend that all we do is sell T-shirts. That's
when that time comes. That'll be a great plan. Yeah.
I'd like to see Nikos on a bobblehead.
What was the front company for Don Corleone? The Genco olive oil.
What is a
company?
bobblehead? I don't know what this is, but sounds fun.
Oh yeah, it's a baseball thing, a bobblehead. They make it's a head on a spring and it goes back and forth. They don't do it in basketball. I don't think so.
Basketball is my cultural reference.
Yeah, that's where I brought it up.
Well, long story short, if you're just joining us now, or if you haven't become a member, listen, guys, look, I have COVID-19. I don't know if you caught that. I'm sitting here with my finite time on earth, encouraging you to become an ARCUK member. This is your own values I'm trying to push on you. This is not for me. But I mean, seriously, think about how much content you consume from the YouTube channel or something like that. And then, think about how much you consume like Netflix and what you pay them. Just give us some money, please. But also bigger than that. Help build this thing, feel invested in it, or it's a very unusual project that Razi has created. And it's grown in mysterious ways over the last year or two. And imagine where it can go with a little bit more capital. So get invested in this thing and contribute towards it, and you'll feel invested. And when Atlantis is upon us, you'll know you're the one who got us there.
Yeah, and we have people in the chat already saying that they'll buy merch. And by the way, people who are members or were members a week ago or so, when I told the members what the first T-shirt design is going to be, already said that they're going to buy it. So that could be the way we become rich. Who knows? Ellen, you've been here. We heard from you in the beginning, but I'm sure many people have joined since then. And also, I don't think we spoke much. Nikos touched on the romance event, but that was it wasn't your first time on the channel. It was your second time. The first time was the birthday celebration for Leonard Peikoff. But that event was also, I think, a great event. It was also on your anniversary, right? You are muted, though. Yeah.
Yes, and Ed Locke was on it too. That was very enjoyable. And just from the experience today, I flash back to when Harris and I first discovered Objectivism and how rare it was to get together with a few people who kind of sort of knew of Ayn Rand or liked Objectivism and wanted to listen to Leonard Peikoff's tapes with us. I mean, we had to go driving to find people. And I think, Razi, what you have done here is amazing, varied content at your fingertips anytime, night or day. And Nikos and everyone that's been involved. even the COVID guy. Hopefully you won't have that too much longer. But I think it's wonderful that you make it so readily available, so relatively inexpensively. If everybody that's interested in supporting you, I think you can fly with this easily. And I also think the new ideas, Nikos, what you just showed us was fascinating, because who doesn't want to read self-help books, and who feels overwhelmed? I can't tell you the number on my shelf that I've read and the number that I haven't read. You know, they're my wish list. And just to be able to single out certain tips. I know I took a course earlier this year with Craig Biddle on something similar. He went through essentialism and he went through getting things done. But just if you're going through books like that, giving tips, that is phenomenal. And the way that you display it, the graphics on it, and the essentialization and the tie into objectivist points, and your capacity to ask fascinating questions, I think rocks. Or as Andy would say, it rocks and rolls, which I say now all the time.
Thank you very much, Helen. I really appreciate it. Thanks.
So I think what you're doing is you're not just creating the content, you are creating a community. Again, I would have to drive so far to find somebody, and a potential soul, partner. Harris and I would lease Leonard's tapes. And one guy said he would read my foot for me. And it's like, oh my God. And here you are offering people from around the world who aren't going to read my feed, who have minds, who are bright and are not psychics or whatnot. So this is just delightful. You've created an amazing community. So thank you. And I hope I hope this is very successful for me, for you, for everyone here. And I've loved working with Shoshana and Andy. That I want to say.
Thank you very much, Ellen. Thank you.
Thanks, Ellen. And yeah, by the way, when we send emails around discussing the Atlas Shrugged character series, Let's Rock and Roll has become sort of the what everybody says now, because Andy is contagious in that sense.
Wonderfully contagious.
I want to, by the way, somebody in the chat. We have some merchandise suggestions in the chat. Zalmi says, make a Rucka doll that plays his songs when you squeeze it. I would buy that, but I'm not sure that fits our brand identity. But if Rucka does that on his online shop.
I mean, I would have thought maybe that's my personal product to push by myself. But hey, if it helps ARC UK, I'm happy to hand over my life's intellectual whatever product. Go ahead. Brand is the
how
word.
about a T-shirt that says who is Rosie Ginsburg?
No.
Question mark.
Nice.
Thanks, but no.
Nope. It's the chat room loves it.
Oh, then we'll deal with Nikos. Although then you have to deal with his last name. No, then in that case, maybe you can just say who is Nikos.
One of my biggest arguments with Nikos over the past few years is I've been trying to get him to get rid of that last name, but there's
good idea.
How do you pronounce it?
Actually, it's very simple. You just read each syllable because it's easy. Sotirakopoulos.
Okay.
In one word, Sotirakopoulos.
Sotirakopoulos.
So with one attempt, you had a better result than Raka, who's been trying to pronounce it since May.
Well, he's got COVID now. Hopefully that's short-lived, very short-lived.
Sotirakopoulos.
The COVID may help with pronouncing it turns out. Ellen, have you been tested?
I've had
pronounced it so well at first. I mean.
Oh yeah, no, we've had both vaccines, both of us.
Great.
Well, we did say we'll be here for 3 hours. It's well over 3 hours. We're not done, by the way. We're going to Clubhouse. I hope you all join us immediately after the show. I should also say that, people who enjoyed this, please like the video. That means more people will get to watch it. If you share it, even more people will get to watch it. If you subscribe, you'll get content from us pretty much every day. And we're on a bunch of different social media platforms, not just the main ones. We're also we're looking into the new ones. So we're on TikTok, and we are, as I mentioned, and we'll keep mentioning every show because we're going to go there right after every show. We're on Clubhouse. Actually, at the moment, it's just me on Clubhouse, and everybody as an individual. We don't have our own club. That is hopefully coming. But yeah, we will be doing shows there every day. We will soon hopefully be doing more than one show a day. And we will be back here tomorrow with the daily objective. That'll be Rucka and Nikos. Now, Rucka and Nikos, you guys have this whole, outro thing down to a science. So I'm going to leave it to you. And as I mentioned, right after the live stream ends on Clubhouse, join us.
So let me start the outro and then Raka finishes it because who else could do it better? So first I want to say thank you to 3 different categories of people. One is not a category, it's an individual. So obviously everyone who has helped and gave fundings to ARC UK throughout all these years. So Razi mentioned in the beginning, the donors, obviously Carl, the Prometheus Foundation, or as it was called back then, I think we started receiving fund when it was called the what was the previous name, Razi?
The Objectivist Venture Fund.
Yes, the Objectivist Venture Fund. So obviously a huge thank you, but also a big thank you to all the intellectuals who have shown up to our events. Again, as Razi mentioned, Tal has given his support, has given his, most importantly, the moral sanction, but also the moral sanction of the ARI intellectuals to be involved with us. Also to the people who started the community. So I'm not such an old timer, so I don't know everyone, but definitely, I don't know if we should name names, but definitely, for example, okay, I'll definitely name George because, again, he's such a cool guy that he's one of the reasons that I got excited with the community. Other people like maybe, I don't know if they want their names to be public. Also, a huge kudos to the team behind the scenes, to the people who create the image quotes, the short clips, the thumbnails. I don't know if you've noticed the thumbnails. That is one particular member of team who this is their thing, creating very exciting thumbnails. And last but not least, there is no ARC UK without Razi. So without everything that you've seen today, if you take this away, somehow there still can be an ARC UK. There can be no ARC UK without Razi. So a huge thank you from me to Razi, not only as someone who works, but also someone who gets value from consuming this content. So I think as an act of justice, these things had to be said. I hope I didn't forget someone who should have been mentioned. So, and let's go for the last outro from Raka.
Thank you for joining us, everybody. Thank you especially to all the super chatters and all the people who became members and the regular chatters, people who were watching live and people who will watch this later. Thank you, Razi, in front of the scenes. And thank you to all of the guests. Wow, too many of them to even remember. It's been such a who's who. It's like the Oscars or something, without some of the negative things that have, well, let's just say without the racial quota that they require now. Or is that that's the Oscars. Anyway, wouldn't be an outro without a little tangent. Listen, everybody, I'll say one last time. If you haven't become an ARC UK member, I would really consider it. Look, I am not into pushing something on you that I don't think would be good for you, that you won't be glad you purchased or acquired. This is this is a really positive step. And like I mentioned at the start of the show, I think the level of membership that includes an objective standard membership, look how cool this cover is. I mean, this alone is worth joining, but I would definitely recommend it. We are jumping over to Clubhouse. Again, thank you to all of the guests. Apologies to Mark Pellegrino, who's been on hold this whole time. We didn't get time for him. We'll be back here same time tomorrow, 6 p.m. UK time. Thank you and goodbye.